All right, we call the order. Invocation is going to be led by Supervisor Stroud, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand with us?
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. We thank you once again for this opportunity to serve, and ask you to provide us with the judgment necessary to perform the job. We ask you to keep your hands on our citizens, employees, and especially our law enforcement and military as they go into harm's way, ensuring they're victorious in protecting our way of life and in defeating our enemies. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to add to the Board of Directors agenda a discussion on electronic meetings for the Service Authority and adding a section to the bylaws.
Okay. Do we need a second for that, or is that just will of the board kind of thing? Anybody have an issue with that?
Bylaws.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you. Any others? All right. I'll open the floor now for public comment. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly included in the public record. And we will start with Pastor James Shaw.
I think you passed it to me. He's second. I'm
Oh, okay. I see the numbers now. Like, what's that about?
Now you figure it out. All right. He didn't want to be first. I'm Sherman Davis, and I vote in the Dalton District. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to read you from Scripture. And I'll read from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, and verse number 40. It's about the thief on the cross. And he says, "But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Dost not fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation." Point is that we're all under the same condemnation. And we indeed justly, for we receive the reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. He said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. I'd like to think about this thief for just a moment on the cross, as he, just in a few minutes after this, he's going to be in heaven. And just moments before he went to heaven, he was cursing and slandering the Lord. Matthew 27 tells us both thieves were abusing the Lord verbally. And this thief had never been studied the Bible, evidently. He had never been baptized. He had never known anything about church membership. And yet he made it in. And I'm sure that there must have been some angels up there, maybe Gabriel, who might have thought, how in the world, maybe they didn't get the memo. I don't know. But anyway, how did this man make it into heaven? And this murdering thief, and he looks at the thief and he says, you made it in. How did you make it in? And the thief just kind of went like, I don't know how I made it. I don't know how I made it in, but I'm here and I'm in heaven, and he's rejoicing in the fact. And so the angel again said, well, how did you make it in? What the angel must have thought, how in the world? Just a few minutes ago, I saw you on a cross, cursing and mocking and tearing the Lord down. And so the angel asked the man again, and so he doesn't know the answer to the question. And so he said, well, I need to call my supervisor angel. Maybe my supervisor angel can help me to figure out how you got in here. And so he calls the supervisor angel, and the supervisor angel comes in, and he says, do you know anything about the doctrine of justification by faith? And the man said, I don't know anything about that doctrine. Do you know anything about the doctrine of the church membership? I don't know anything about the doctrine of church membership. Do you know anything about the doctrine of good works? I don't know anything about the doctrine of good works. Well, on what basis are you here? How did you get in? And the man in the middle, he said, well, the only thing I can tell you is the man on the middle cross said I could come in. And the truth of the matter is, if you get to heaven, it'll be because the man on the middle cross said you get to heaven or you go into heaven. If you ever stand before the pearly gates and ask the question, why should you come in? If you answer in the first person, you're wrong. You say, because I've done this, because I love Jesus, because I do good work, because I love my neighbor, because I go to church. You answer in the first person, it's wrong. The answer is in the third person, and that person is because of what he did to get us there. The man in the middle cross is the reason we can go to heaven. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shaw, there you are. Are we ready now?
Yes. James Shaw, James Monroe District columnist for the Northern Next Sentinel, citizen journalist, kgmedia.top. Not speaking in my capacity as EDA member. No hat today. As I have stated previously, I grew up in Vermont for 4 years during a time when there were more cows than people. I waited for the school bus at 20 below with a cast on my leg and crutches from a skiing accident. Once it started snowing on a Monday, and we still had school through midday Wednesday after 3 feet fell, but they knew a couple more feet were coming and the plows couldn't keep up. And so they canceled school so all the kids could start shoveling snow and keeping their driveways clear. On Monday, we had some challenges and such, as it is with the snow around here and other days and such, and that's okay. We figure things out around here in King George, and we do our best. We help our neighbor, we help our family, we help our friends, we help the elderly down the street get through these kinds of unusual snowstorm combo things. And life goes on in King George. Remember, there's a lot of people out there who are contributing to make life that it is. You folks up there, us people out here, all the hidden behind the scenes people, first responders, and the like. They are part of what makes this a special place, and we are thankful that they are there in our time of need. I heard that, for example, some of the service authority service people were out and about on their hands and knees because of the ice doing water and sewer fix things. You do what you got to do. And life goes on, and we make things work, and we try not to complain too much. And we're very thankful for all the people who make this a special, special county and place. I read too much complaints on Facebook recently. That's why I'm getting emotional. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I have to say I'm impressed that you grew up in 4 years in Vermont. I'm in my mid-50s and still working on growing up. All right, Ms. Lavelle.
Hi, my name is Ana Maria Lobo. I live in Presidential Lakes. I want to thank you for your service to the community. I know the job is hard to you. It's hard, and you work really hard the first year, trying to fix things that have been broken for a long time. You tried to find where the money was going. Well, I still want you to work in the Service Authority and bring down the county debt. Last year, you concentrated on finding a general manager for the Service Authority. And I appreciate that you hired Mr. Dan Hamilton. I haven't had a chance to talk with him, but I think he's doing a great job. Also, I asked you to make good decisions for the county about the data centers. How many data centers do you want to put in King George County? How much do you want to change King George to get more revenue? I think you have already approved the data centers in Daggett along James Madison Parkway Route 301. And I understand the Planning Commission has given a preliminary green light to proposal for the 7.5 million square foot data center project for the Amazon at the Birchwood Power Plant location. Also, the Birchwood Power Plant partners had asked for rezoning of the location from a limited agriculture A1 and rural agriculture A2 to industrial district with a special exemption amendment to clear the way for 869-acre data center park. What I want to know is how the electricity and water they use is going to affect the prices for the people of King George. I know you worry about the revenue for the county. That is what the supervisors say 30 years ago when they approved the landfill. We shouldn't have any problems if you stop spending money on things that we don't need to spend, only on things that we really needed. Also, I want to tell Mr. Stroud that I know he's a businessman and wants to bring more business to King George. You're sitting in that chair because the last person in it also wants to bring more business and people to the county. He was a great person, but he lost it. The people of King George that have lived in here for a long time just want to live in peace. Thank you.
Sorry, that's everybody that signed up. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like? Is there another list going around?
Sign out.
You have another list? Mr. Lyson, come on up.
Evening, Arn Eliason, James Madison District. Tonight I come with a question, and it's predicated on the fact that in the near future, we will most likely have an action to consider the application from Green Energy Ventures. And in an attempt to understand what it is we're getting into with that, I was doing some research and I found an old MOU, but it's a couple of years out of date. And I could not find a performance agreement so that I could actually have a look at the deal. And my question is, could any one of you please help me out with where I can find a performance agreement to have a look at and review? I would appreciate it so I would understand better the issues. Thank you.
Ms. Balin?
Hi, my name is Sarah Balon, and I live in the James Monroe District. I emailed the board my concerns of the environmental footprint Green Energy Ventures would leave in our community last March 2025. On January 20th, I was sick and could not physically attend the board meeting. I watched the live stream where the board patiently listened to every community member's concerns. Instead of restating my initial concerns, I would like to take this time to speak to some of the concerns that the board members have. I agree with Mr. Kenneth Stroud. No matter how you run the numbers, the vehicle count does not make sense. And I too am concerned about the potential traffic light at the Bloomsbury Road and Route 3 intersection. I think we can all agree that Kings Highway has enough traffic, and many residents would probably make an attempt to avoid this light. I would like to point out that the other end of Bloomsbury Road cuts out to 218, which is notoriously known as a dangerous road. The speed limit ranges from 20 to 40 miles per hour, and a friend of mine totaled his car while making a turn. We do not need any more traffic on this road either. There was also a concern over VDOT leaving the upkeep work of the flowers to King George County, and the gentleman proclaimed that native flowers do not need as much maintenance as the grass currently present. I do native plant installations, and that is simply not true. Half of the work that we do is weeding and installing irrigation systems. I highly doubt that Green Energy Ventures was planning on putting an irrigation system in the middle of the highway. We are in the middle of a drought, so I ask, who is going to water the flowers? If the flowers do not get cared for, they will be of no use. I also want to point out that the gentleman exclaimed to us that Green Energy Ventures decreased their initial proposal from 22 buildings to 13, as if this is a great deal. But a resident pointed out that 6.5 million square feet would make this data center the top 5 largest in the country. To me, it seems like All of the favors Green Energy Ventures is offering isn't helping anybody. There was a comment made that we cannot all eat honey. I would like to counter argue that we cannot eat money either. I attended Sealston Elementary School as a child, and I can assure you that no amount of a tax break will make sense to those kids if they cannot breathe the air. I understand the board wants something to be built on this land, but Green Energy Ventures is not the correct project. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Ms. Cleveland?
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Carrie Cleveland. I am a resident of the James Monroe District, and you may recognize me as a member of the King George County School Board. I first want to say thank you so much for your support of the new VOTEC building. We appreciate that the Board of Supervisors recognizes the need for our students and also for our community. As we continue to move this project forward, it would be helpful to start thinking about procuring an architect so we can continue to make plans for the new facility. This board approved the demolition of the existing building, which we are super appreciative of. But what we don't want to happen is to have a vacant lot for an extended period of time. Our community has used that building for different activities. We understand that losing the property for these activities will be a transition, but not moving forward immediately after demolition would definitely be less attractive to our community. I'm asking that this board make a motion tonight to direct the county staff to draft an RFP for procurement of an architect so that we can begin designing the new building and move this project forward as quickly as possible, which will help provide the best experience and best education for our students of King George. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Mr. Dines, do you have anybody online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Did anyone receive any correspondence this week? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. I'll close public comments at this time, and we'll move on to reports of the members of the board. Mr. Robotham?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first things first, I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. Pastor Davis, it was great to hear you speak. You're back with energy. I like it. You've been sick the last couple times you've been here, so it's good to see you feeling well again. Pastor Shaw, I want to echo something you said. The King George County staff, they did do a great job when they were out servicing at least my community and my district that I represent here this week. We had a number of pressure issues in Hopyard, and I believe we'll talk about those later in the general manager report, so hold by for that. But I saw the county staff out there. One of my neighbor's houses right across the street as they were digging through all the ice to try and get to the water meter, and they did that multiple times in the community that week. So it was great to see them work so hard to try and help the customers here. So I appreciate that. Ms. Lavelle, I agree. I believe we've made a good choice in the general manager here. So I've enjoyed working with Dan so far, and I look forward for the things to come and continuing to serve you here. With that, I will pass it on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bender?
Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Thank you. I'm going to try to conserve my voice for later. I apologize I can't be there again. Being trapped in your house, unfortunately, germs travel and you get a cold. But I want to thank all the people in the community for everything, helping your neighbors during the snowstorm, plowing driveways, shoveling, and looking out for everybody. And I also want to thank all of our staff for the Service Authority and the board of and the our own staff in the county government for all they did during the storm. And I also want to give a shout out to Mr. Smolnick and all the work that he did to help coordinate with Mr. Metz and Cedric's Crossing. So the other thing I want to make a point about is I really feel that all of us should really pay attention to the legislature, the Virginia legislature. There's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of bills that have consequences that we don't even realize. So I've been following it, and I encourage you to follow all these bills because a lot of them do not have the best impact for our localities. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I should note, as you've guessed, that she's participating online. And does anybody have any issue with that? All right, cool. We'll move on to Mr. Stroud.
Thank you, sir. And thanks, Ms. Supervisor Bender for pointing out the legislation because that there's a lot of impactful things going on right now that is worth our citizens looking at. So just to begin with, I'll talk about the things that I did on the 22nd. I was blessed to be able to go and participate in mock interviews with Mrs. D. Strauss's crew over at the high school. And had a great time there. Was really impressed with the kids, the young adults, not kids. They're already better at interviewing than some of the applicants we have that applying for jobs with our company. So they're doing a good job over there with them. And it was really good to see. And then the next day, I was able to go speak with Miss Barbara Anderson's honors government class. And that was a lot of fun. Seeing young adults be involved in government, that they asked a lot of good questions and some challenging questions, which I enjoy, challenging questions, and enjoy speaking to them and being very frank with them. Also, as the Emergency Operations Center liaison, I participated in a planning meeting prior to the winter storm firm. I was really proud of the way that our personnel stepped up to the plate, and they leaned into ensuring that the county was ready and prepared. Fortunately, we didn't have to open a shelter in the county. Some of our sister counties did, and had people in the single digits show up. I think one of them had one person show up. And opening a shelter is a lot of money, but it also involves having employees go in and man it for nobody to show up. That's a lot. So it's a, you're trying to weigh that, and that's what our folks did. The leaders we had in the county, they made the right decision in not opening one, and which saved money and saved our employees from having to come in and put them in a hazardous situation just getting into the building. So you always question yourself when you're trying to figure that out. And fortunately, we were really blessed through the storm to not have a lot of emergencies or a lot of people that needed that assistance. So although everyone I felt did an awesome job, there were a few people who I noted that made a notable difference. In IT, Mr. Steve Basham, he came in to fix a hung up domain controller. And, you may think, well, what's so important about that? That domain controllers would allow the communications within the county to take place. And had he not done that, the communications, we couldn't have communicated. So that was, that he came in, and that was on Saturday or Sunday, I believe, whenever the weather was really bad, the roads were bad. And he braved that to come in and take care of that. Miss Amy Southall, for her ability to identify opportunities to communicate with our citizens and then making it happen. To include updating our four-wheel drive volunteer force contact roster. So during the EEOC meeting, we talked about it, and I don't know if she volunteered or was nominated, but she ended up with the task of updating it, and she did a good job with it and with getting that done. And that's a crucial thing. And I'm grateful for the volunteers in the county that signed up for that, the four-wheel drive crew, because whenever we have elderly people or people that live down some of these roads, especially private roads that aren't plowed or aren't maintained, and they need assistance, that we have these volunteers that are willing to leave their family and their own comfort or whatever they have to do to go and help people. That's it's an incredible thing, and that's what Pastor Shaw talked about, and we appreciate and we're grateful for it. And I'm grateful that Ms. Southall picked that up. But a lot of the communication was coming out by text message and on the website of what was going on. She's the one doing that, and she's really amazing at it. Ms. Susan Courtney, HR, for addressing the personnel schedule and coordinating with folks on the transportation requirements. So it may not seem like a big deal, but at relatively short notice, she has to figure out what county employees are going to be where, who's going to man the EEOC, and where they're coming from and how they're going to get there. Because they don't all have four-wheel drive vehicles, and they don't all live close to the fire station. And so whenever the weather's bad and they've got to get there, it's figuring out who's going to go. And of course, they all have concerns themselves, whether it's pets or family or whatever. So she worked that and did a good job with it, and I appreciate that. And of course, Captain Lynn, he pretty much ran the show. There's back there smiling, but he ran the show and went down, was checking the list, calling on everybody, and made sure that everybody had their input, and checked his list twice. And thank you, sir, for that. And then our elected officials, constitutional officers, as well as our county staff, the senior leadership. Okay, so where they stood out is they didn't stand out front. Their people, they kind of, not that they were there, they were all there. Sheriff was there, chief was there. So all these guys were there, but they weren't the ones that were running it. They were letting their people run it. And that's a hallmark of a leader, that they train their people and they trust them and let them do it. And they really did a good job. So I just wanted to take a moment to address them. And again, everybody was engaged and performed well. I know that I had some calls that weren't pleasant for people that weren't happy with the roads being cleared. And, these storms don't come along all the time, but whenever they do, that heavy ice presented a lot of challenges, and it did for everybody, okay, for everybody. Nobody was immune from it. But ice is especially challenging because the trucks can't plow over the heavy ice. The plows don't break through the ice. So you need something to break through the ice before you move it. And for people that don't understand heavy equipment, they don't understand the hazards with it, all they want is a road cleared, and they want it done now. And if you wanted to get your hands on a skid steer, they weren't available. They were all leased ahead of time because the people with a foresight went and rented them. So if you needed one, if you didn't own one, you couldn't get one. So it's challenging whenever everybody needs the same piece of equipment all at the same time. And there's a lot of hazards just on the roads, because you don't want people plowing a VDOT road, or even some people you don't want on the road anyway. There's damages. So whenever you start picking up ice, ice takes asphalt, gravel, it takes other stuff with it. And then what do we have to do? We have to pay to repair the roads and fix them. So it's a lot more challenging than people think, and it takes time. So for those that had the patience, those that called and let us know that they needed help, it's important that you call in and let us know you need help. That's important. But for those that did it without yelling, calling us names or whatever, thank you for that. To some of the remarks tonight, I've already talked for quite a bit, but Ms. Santa Marie, I made a couple notes on your comments, and you speak to us quite often about bringing down the county debt. And you also mentioned about how many data centers do we need. You're not the only person that has asked that. I've had other people, how many data centers do we need? Well, we have one that was approved before this board came in. It's Amazon, right? They haven't built anything. We're not stopping them from building. They're just not building. So there's not like there's revenue coming in from that, right? And we can't make them build. And Arn, you asked about a performance agreement. The only data center that has a performance agreement was Amazon. That's the only ones and we didn't accept the performance agreement because that's what requires us to pay back, give them back 2/3 of the tax money. And they were only paying half the revenue of what other businesses pay in the first place. And then we're going to give them back 2/3. So, that's the problem. They have a huge campus. They're not building anything, and they want all the money back. So
there's nothing happening there. Dahlgren West, that's approved. That's, you know, that's, they're moving forward and things are moving there. I can't talk to the details of it, but I know that that's happening. But then there's the proposal with the Green Energy Ventures. And I think everybody kind of knows where I sit on that. We want to hold them, their feet to the fire to delivering what they say they're going to deliver. But we can't pay down debt without having more revenue sources. You mentioned the landfill. The landfill's going away. So that's a big gap that's going to be coming with having to backfill that. And coffee shops and things like that just don't fill that gap. Small businesses don't fill that gap. It's understanding where the money comes from. Whenever you have a small business, the taxes on it are real estate and the personal property. If the employees don't live in the county, other than what they eat and they spend on food in the county or gas, they're not contributing to the debt. They use the roads, and they may, while they're here, require emergency services or something, but they're not contributing. So the data centers bring in a large revenue for that. And what that does is eventually, what it would do is it would ease the burden on the county in approving other less profitable, profit's not the right word, but less financial, the financial means to the county that would benefit the county. So whenever you're trying to make a decision on other things, and I guess solar farms would be an example, even though it's not the best example, but it comes to mind. Whenever you're looking at that, I say, well, that's not a huge revenue base. It's a revenue, it's some revenue, but a lot of people don't like that. Matter of fact, there's very few things that anybody's came and proposed business-wise that everybody does like. And somebody comes and talks about everything, whether it's a solar farm, a data center, or whatever. You know, somebody doesn't like it. But we have the vocational center that's looking to be built. You know, there's other costs that are going up. If you said in the budget meetings, we haven't raised, and you've came and talked about lowering taxes. We didn't raise taxes the last 2 years, but the requirements on us get bigger. I think it was like $39 million in the first budget meeting, increasing this year. Now, I'm not saying all of it's getting improved, but there was an additional $39 million. Where does that money come from? Without raising taxes. Nobody's going to like that. So whenever people in government make hard decisions, you know, they quite often get voted out. But you know what? Hard decisions have to be made, because whenever people don't make hard decisions, they may stay in office, but you know what happens? The debt continues to go up. This came out during the BRAC and the base closures, and nobody wanted to close bases. No congressman and no senators, nobody wanted to close bases in their state. Why? Because they knew they're going to get voted out. So what happened? We were paying for bases and paying this for this debt that we didn't need. They had to set up this institution called the BRAC, an independent agency that would make those hard decisions, because government wouldn't do it. Government won't shrink itself. But those are hard decisions that you know, we're going to be forced with. Carrie, we need to talk about the architect and all that, because before, I'm not against an architect, but before that we hire an architect, we need to know what the requirements are. We need to have like some sort of, I can talk to you about this and go over it, but I did the same thing with the chief before the firehouse. And the cheapest thing that you're going to do is sit down with pencil and paper with the board and draw out what you think
come up with some measurements. What do you think? Where do you need restrooms at? How does it make, what do you envision? What do you think you want? Because if you just go to an architect and say, hey, we want a vocational center, then they'll draft something, send it to you, and you go back and forth, and we're paying them. So the best thing to do is sit down first and come up with envisioning what it is and draw something out. And I'm not saying architectural drawings. You don't have to be an architect. A pencil, a paper, a ruler, or something, and come up with what we think we need. Even what's the requirement? How many what classes are you going to have, and stuff like that. Before actually engaging an architect, go in with some, because they're going to ask you, and you're going to need that information anyway. I'll end there. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Mr. Metz.
All right, let's see if I can follow that. First off, I will echo what Ken said there. I see Chief Moody in the back. I would like to personally thank not just Chief Moody, but your crew there from Station 3 in the Fairview Beach area. We skirted a huge issue with this storm in power loss. There were 9 people that lost power. They happened to be in the Fairview Beach neighborhood. And probably, maybe not everybody knows this, but the emergency services actually tried to reach out to all 9 of those people to make sure that they were doing okay Sunday night with the temperatures. Power did come back on later that night. So the other thing I would echo is just because we didn't open a shelter doesn't mean there wasn't a plan. Emergency services always has an escalating plan to deal with things like loss of power and loss of heat in the community. And I would say we're not done with this storm yet, right? As much as there's a lot of thank you to go around. We're still clearing roads. I had to dodge a 4-wheel drive tractor and a VDOT plow to get here tonight. So we're still out in the communities. VDOT's still out in the communities clearing streets. And that leads into this week, did have a number of conversations and went and actually met with a couple of the residents on Sedgwick Court and Alberta Court. That is a difficult situation where this county was working up till about 3 years ago to transfer those to VDOT roads. I would ask the will of the board to have Mr. Smolnick continue to look at why that final transfer didn't occur and see if we can come to resolution on why VDOT didn't take those two roads, because they ended up not being plowed, and the residents were under the belief that they were VDOT owned and maintained. It is VDOT signed. And investment was made to get that road into the VDOT system, and appears it got lost at the very end there 3 years ago. So that's good. The other item I have during the review of some of the materials coming up, we've got a presentation coming on a particular solar farm exception discussion. I did a lot of research and went back and looked at some of the videos from previous solar farm discussions. And one of the things, the will of the residents seems to be, hey, how come we can't put solar over parking lots? And I had a conversation with Mr. Smolnick and Mr. Stewart. We have in our zoning ordinance in 3 different paragraphs, the lowest surface of any panel shall be a maximum of 4 foot. It's the will of the board. I'd like to ask Mr. Smolnick to get with Ms. Leduc and see what that paragraph was added to prevent. It seems very short-sighted. It actually would preclude doing solar over parking, which is exactly what residents ask at every solar discussion we've had so far. Good? Did you take a look at that paragraph? I'm not asking to remove it from the zoning. I'm asking for you to research it and come back to us with whether that's a good idea to remove that paragraph or not.
Basically put a shade over it.
Yeah, 4 feet, less, you drive a sports car. I can't fit any of my stuff under 4 feet, so.
I have a truck.
In discussions, it seems like it was actually inverted in the text, maybe. There's a lot of debate on why that, it's not in the height restrictions, which is interesting. There's a whole section about height restrictions in solar. This is in a design considerations paragraph that's later. Unsure why it got added in, and it's in all 3 of our commercial, medium size, and residential sections. I can give you the reference if you want. All right.
Would be ugly, but it would keep our cars cooler in the summertime.
Great. That was it. Thank you.
All right. Well, are y'all good? Will of the board, are y'all good with Matt pursuing these 2 items?
He can look into it.
Yeah.
And I can speak right now on Sedgwick Court. So I've done some research on this. This first came to me last Thursday evening. So punch list was done. VDOT walked it. All those items were addressed. And then the next step is, so the county was acting as the developer. They had to pull bond on this back in 2019, somewhere around there. So we were acting as the, I guess, the applicant to try to get it into the system. VDOT had sent us their administrative fees associated with getting this in, and then a one-year surety. If you can recall, when we did Fox's Way last year, there was a small administrative fees, and then by board resolution, that can act as your one-year surety with VDOT. So back with Sedgwick Court and Alberta Court, those fees were sent to the then zoning administrator, and which were passed along to the county administration at that time. That's where everything came to a halt. So what I've done is it should go out tomorrow to Mr. Beal. I'm already my letter is almost done requesting a waiver of these fees. It's $3,790 if that comes to mind, but that's $4,000 taxpayer money we're trying to save. So I'm requesting a waiver for these fees. And then we will have to go back and rewalk that since it's been a couple of years. The information that's been provided to me is unless there's something, a big sinkhole, we'll accept it, and the board's resolution would act as the surety, the one-year surety. So I hope to have my letter to Mr. Beal, like I said, this week. It goes to, I believe it goes to central office for approval, and then you will see this coming on one of the board agendas in the very near future, and we'll just do a resolution to act as our surety. But that's where, and I've been on this since I got the email on Thursday morning.
And thank you, Mr. Smolnick. There's been a lot of discussions over the last 4 days about this site. Obviously, if they were in an HOA, they would have planned for this and been able to cover it. They were under the impression it was VDOT road and were very curious why it wasn't getting cleared. They still may be some people there that haven't been able to get a propane delivery. Like I said, we're not done with this storm yet and all of the result consequences. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, sir. So thank you, first of all, for everyone coming out. Congrats, and thank you to you guys, DMS. Whenever there's something coming up, me and Chief Moody, we always email each other if there's anything you need, and he's always been right there. And I think they know that we stand with you guys if you need support in any kind of way. And the same thing goes to the school board. I had a chance, I heard about some of the parking lots weren't getting moved, and I know we didn't have the equipment to really handle what was going on. So I got a chance to speak to Mr. Boyd and get a company and just set something up. And I want to, just talk with him about having something set up, kind of like we do with like Service Authority. We have agreements with, if we ever have like a major blowout or something like that, we have companies that we can call that we already have agreements with that will come in and work and fix things late at night. And they need to have some of those emergency things on the school board too, just to make sure that if you ever come across something, you're ready for it. You never know, as this storm has kind of told us that. A couple different things. I want to say thank you to the community. I know that there's been a couple local businesses, a couple local restaurants that were closed because of the storm. And it's very hard on local businesses, and the people really came out and supported on the days they were open, just buying $100 gift cards and just doing whatever they can and doing this because they knew that it was tough on them. And just the way King George is, and I just really appreciate all that. Ms. Cleveland, you stole all my talking points tonight, but we are in full agreement on that. I think there's people that are on staff here that are trying to delay some of the tearing down because it's going to inconvenience, of some kids. And I've heard people on Facebook say that we don't care about the kids. And it's like, man, they complain when things move too slow, and they complain when things move too fast. It's like, I'm trying to build a building for 200 to 300 kids. So yes, I'm trying to fast track that thing through. I don't understand. And I've seen the map out of, you tear it down and then you got to do this and then you got to do this. And it's like, I understand things. That's the way it's always been, but I don't understand why you can't do everything at the beginning. Why you can't put out the bid to tear down the building, put out the bid for the architectural drawing, put out the bid for the side drawing, put everything out at one time. Why do we have to wait through stages to get things done? And if that's just the way it is the answer, that's the way we've always done it. That's just not a good answer for me. There's no reason for us to accept that government has to move slow, that projects have to move slow. And I would very much like to see a way that we can fast track it. That building is on the top of the list. I promised Mr. Collins it would stay on top of the list because it's very important to the school. And it's very important that we move those things forward. as quickly as possible. So I'd like to see us to just kind of get more creative in the way we're doing things. I understand that there's, wrestling and things like that, and it's going to inconvenience somebody at some time. And I understand parents don't want it to be their kid. It's just like seniors graduated during COVID. I'm sorry that they graduated in the year 2020 and they didn't have a great graduation or whatever. And didn't go to school a lot. And that's unfortunate, but it happened. Sarah, thank you for coming out and speaking on things. I did read your email, and I appreciate you emailing us in. I have been talking to Green Energy Venture a little. Last time we were here, I spoke out about constituents. If you have ideas to help, you should send them in, because I listened to those. So I had a constituent call me and started talking to me about a program. He was from North Carolina. He said, Mr. Davis, I heard you talk about it. There's something you can do. So here's some things we did in North Carolina. And one of those things it's called the Green Leaf Project. And basically what it was is data centers would take a portion of their income and put it into an account for grants to be used by local farmers to help keep King George and keep that county rural. In other words, the hardest part about starting a farm or being a farmer is the fact you get out of college, you don't have money to buy the tractor, you don't have money to buy the farm, you don't have credit to do all those things. But if there's grant programs in place, so if we could actually take a data center, and yes, it's going to eat up land at a location, but if I use revenue from that as grants towards helping other parts of our county stay rural, help when people need growth or tractors or whatever they need to do, and that would maybe be run by local farmers in King George. Like they would be getting together and they'd be deciding on what's going to go where. And I know it'd have to run through the county on some way, because you can't just give money out there and let it go away. But using the revenue that we're getting to keep King George rural, there's going to be areas where that's not going to happen at. But it beats houses. I know that we talked about Mr. Stroud and the gentleman that was there before him. It wasn't really about businesses they were trying to bring in. They were trying to bring in more houses, more rooftops, in order to bring in more businesses. That was the game plan before. That's the opposite game plan of what we're doing now, because all that did was raise taxes, and that's what we're dealing with today. Hop Yard's dealing with it. I know that system was supposed to be totally sufficient, but they weren't planning on the future growth, and those contracts should have been read over it, and they should have seen what was going on there. I want to reach out to Renee and Claudette. As a lot of you know, I've been talking a lot about Ralph Bunch. It's been pushed that people want to get Ralph Bunch renovated and get it up and running. At the same time, you have the Historical Society who's looking for us, who needs a space to house there. So I've been talking with them, and I'm going to have a meeting with them probably this week or early next week. And they've come to an agreement that instead of having just the Ralph Bunch for just what they want, just for the rise and all those things that with Bushrod they want to do, we can just have one museum that is the King George History Museum, where we can have all the King George history there, from Native Americans to the settlers and to the school that was there. Just pay homage to all these people and just have one location, and just have one building, as opposed to having to build a couple different buildings. I think it would be great for us to look at it from that level. Anne Marie, also, you said you hadn't talked to Dan Hamilton yet. Hit me up and I'll give you his telephone number so you can call him whenever you want to. All right, I'll take care of that. That's good with you. All right. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. I also like the fact that there's one thing that Mr. Stroud said, and he was talking about leaders. And there's one thing that a true leader does. A true leader never seeks credit. A true leader never seeks to get the credit for anything getting done or a pat on the back. They're always pointing to their people to do it. That's why we vote for chair up here, and we vote for those things up here, because we want to have people up here that aren't always looking to take credit and pat themselves on the back. And same thing they do at the school board. And when I've been to a couple fire, I've been to the big fire, and I watched our chief stand back and let his people run it, debrief, do everything. And I've seen Mr. Giles, our sheriff, do the exact same thing. And that's how you produce leaders. And I just thank you guys for all that you do. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, I want to open it up, my report, with an apology to my friend here. For folks that don't know Mr. Stroud and me, that comment about you sure may have come across as snippy and just rude. And so I do apologize. In the military, you spend a lot of time communicating through sarcasm. For me personally, if I'm not picking on you, it means I don't know you very well or I don't like you. So I respect my brother up here very much. So please understand that was a joke, but I am sorry if that came across as rude, bud. Now, as far as the engagements for the last couple of weeks, on the 2nd, we had the George Washington Regional Commission. On the 26th, had an agenda meeting with Mr. Smolnick and Ms. Fish. 24th, breakfast at IHOP with a local concerned citizen. Really enjoyed that. I enjoy the Saturday mornings at the various breakfast places around the county, and I promise I'm going to hit up Galleys. I think I just get out earlier than y'all do, so maybe I'll do lunch at Galleys. But I enjoy those things. There was a question on Facebook a few weeks ago, like, why don't I announce these things? It's not like I just show up at a breakfast place and wait for some poor schmuck to show up and I grab them and make them talk to me for an hour. These are people that are asking, hey, can we meet up and chat? So if you want to meet somewhere, I'm more than happy to. Typically, it's going to be Saturday morning, early Sunday morning before church, or after later in the afternoon on weekdays. But happy to chat. Love to hear folks and meet with you. On the 21st, Economic Development Partnering Event, did that in King George. That was kind of cool. Got to meet some new folks, contractors and whatnot around the area that are interested in coming to, mostly to the base, just because the potential for major income there. But some of them are actually interested in working with the county as well, so that was cool. So emails, phone calls, mostly dealing with road conditions and school status, as you would imagine. Got a meeting tomorrow night with Dr. Boyd, Ms. Bender, and our counterparts on the school board. Going to be talking about the school budget for the coming year, school closures, snow, asynchronous learning, some stuff like that. I think that's about it on the report. Again, I want to echo what everybody else said. Thank y'all for coming out. Thanks to all the service workers that are helping make it through this crazy storm. I think it was Thursday night, maybe when, I don't remember. Regardless, I went up the hill at my house. I live in Claydale, and I'm in the front, so my yard looks like this. On a dry day, back when I was mowing the grass, I would have to wear cleats to keep from sliding under the mower. So you can imagine living on an ice rink that slanted 40 degrees. But used a shovel, got myself to the top of the hill, got the snow off my car, and turned around. I guess I forgot there was snow on the ground or something. I don't know, but busted hard. I smacked my head, my shoulders. The next day, I felt like I was back in high school, the day after a football game. Back then I was way lighter and, probably not big enough to play football, but, I made it work. But Saturday morning was always painful. It was the same thing Friday morning this past week. So thanks for digging that out and trying to keep our folks safe. At this point, a couple of, one's not a nomination, just I want to acknowledge that I've got a seat open on the Planning Commission. There's a person that I've talked to about taking that, and he agreed to, but I'm going to hold off on that nomination because he texted me earlier this week, said he wants to meet up one more time, and we haven't had a chance to meet yet, so I'm just going to hold off on that until he and I get a chat. But I do want to nominate Mr. Walter Legg for appointment to the Landfill Advisory Committee.
Second.
Properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Legg, and thank you for volunteering your service, sir. All right, that's it for the board reports. We'll kick off the Board of Supervisors with the consent agenda. Do you have a motion on the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? And by roll call, Ms. Bender.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Mr. Metz.
Aye.
Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Constitutional officers, do we have any constitutional officers or the representatives here tonight that'd like to speak to us? All right, seeing none, I'll hand it off to Mr. Robotham, acting chair for the directors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with that, we did amend the agenda to bring up a quick bylaw amendment for the Board of Directors. Do we mind if we take that first? All right, sounds good. So what we're trying to do here, the Service Authority bylaws do not have any input for members taking these meetings via electronic means. That was left out of the bylaws there. So what I want to discuss with the team here is basically adding Section 5 Bravo from the King George Board of Supervisors bylaws, which covers quorums and actions in electronic meetings. And basically that allows participation electronically pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2 TAC 3708.2, which basically lets members participate electronically, granted that a quorum is physically present and assembled.
So I move that we make that change as presented by Mr. Robotham.
Motion properly made. Any second?
I'll second that.
All right. With a motion properly seconded, any discussion? Further discussion?
Is there any issues or problems that we can see if we looked over it?
I don't believe so. It's the same rules that you all have adopted as Board of Supervisors already. So I would imagine not. That being said, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Stepped out. No, he's not.
No,
Okay. Ken's not. Yeah, I'm
He
good.
represents him.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. So with that input of the bylaws, us adopting that allows, I believe, Ms. Bender to now participate electronically if she needs to. So Ms. Bender, as long as we still have you, feel free to speak up as needed. So with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion properly seconded. Any discussion? All right, nothing heard. All in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Metz?
Aye.
Mr. Sullins?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. With that, no presentations. We'll move on to discussion items. SA 22, which is the Oakland Park decommissioning. And Mr. Hamilton, I'll let you field that report.
First of all, I want to apologize for interrupting you. I should pay better attention there to who got up and left. In any case, the agenda states that Bryce Young, the county engineer, was going to present this report. I'm going to do that on Bryce's behalf, and I apologize for not making that clear, first of all. In any case, this is a report that was prepared a few years ago. It's a preliminary engineering report. It's related to the decommissioning of the Oakland Park wastewater treatment plant facility. This brief PowerPoint presentation, I think, is maybe 12 slides. It's just an abbreviated version of a 33-page report that describes how this wastewater plant should be decommissioned and removed from the operations of the Service Authority. And thank you, Jackie, for running through this for me. So first, of course, you can see the agenda here. We're going to discuss the purpose of the project, the current infrastructure, the proposed pipeline that would be associated with this decommissioning, why we're talking about the use of reclaimed water, and then estimated costs. So next slide. So what we're talking about here is taking a smaller and deteriorating, outdated wastewater treatment plant facility and basically transferring the sewage that is processed there to the hop yard plant. A typical wastewater treatment facility lasts maybe 20 to 30 years without either major upgrades or renovations or replacement. Something we're dealing with right now at the Dahlgren wastewater plant, where we're putting $4 million in it to upgrade it. In this case, the existing facility has reached the end of its useful life. It was built in 1993, so of course 30 years from that would be 2023, so we kind of already exceeded that. DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality, is also encouraging us to decommission this plant rather than try to upgrade it. So the current infrastructure, of course, this is an aerial photo. It shows you the existing facility. Its average flow is 48,000 gallons per day, which is pretty low. It collects sewage from the Oakland Park neighborhood and also the Sealston Elementary School and the industrial park. Next slide. So the hop yard facility has an average current flow of about 90,000 gallons per day. So we're talking about twice of what Oakland Park can process. The average future flow, including the Perkins Corner facility, which is in the process of being decommissioned now, would raise that up to about 150,000 gallons per day. However, as you can see, it's currently permitted to process 375,000 gallons per day and can be modified the state would basically transfer or allocate the resources from the one permit to the other, we could process up to 500,000 gallons per day at the Hop Yard plant. So this, obviously, the Hop Yard plant collects sewage from the Hop Yard neighborhood, and will also, within the next year or so, be taking sewage from the courthouse system as well, which is served by the Perkins Corner plant. So this is another aerial view of the Hop Yard plant, which again, as you all know, is on the left off of Port Conway Road, about a mile in, right after you cross the little creek there. Next slide. The proposed pipeline that we're talking about, primarily what we would need is a 17,000 foot 6-inch PVC wastewater force main, which would take the sewage that's currently being processed at the Oakland Park system and push it up to the Hop Yard system. Now, this slide makes reference also to adding 17,000 feet of 12-inch PVC water main, which is really separate from decommissioning the wastewater plant. But that would allow us to interconnect the Oakland Park water system with the Hop Yard and Courtyard system. I'll explain at the end here why that helps us in terms of redundancy. Next slide. So this gives you an idea of the footprint of the pipeline. We're talking about using the right-of-way along the edge of the road here. I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail. I'm sure nobody online can see this slide very easily, and it's difficult to see from the audience. But again, we're not talking about taking down woodlands or anything like that. We're talking about existing right-of-ways. So next slide. So the reference to reclaimed water, which you're going to see in a minute when we talk about the costs, basically reclaimed water has now become potentially an asset that we can market to some of these potential data centers. They can use that as cooling water instead of taking resources from the ground, which is currently our source water, or potentially the river, i.e. the Rappahannock or the Potomac. I'll be talking about that in my subsequent report here. But so if we were to install a reclaimed wastewater line, it would include roughly 28,000 feet of 10-inch PVC, a booster station, and a 600,000 gallon storage facility. This would be funded by the developer. This would not be something that would come at the cost of the current ratepayers. And I'm also going to be talking about that in my report. But as a standard of business when it comes to water and wastewater utilities, when you take on new customers, the way that we calculate the impact to the system is specifically designed to prevent current stakeholders, current customers from financing the impacts of an additional customer or an additional development. So when we talk about a data center or any other type of industry, basically it's self-funding. They have to provide the upgrades necessary to the facilities and or the additional pipelines. So this project cost is, if you look at the bottom, you're going to see the number of $23,700,000. Again, this is not something we're talking about doing this year or next year. This is something that's probably 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But it includes some costs that we don't need as part of the decommissioning project. And the first one, I have a little trouble seeing this here. I believe the water main cost, which again, if we're going to lay the sewer pipe from Oakland Park all the way up to Hop Yard, we should probably go ahead and install a water line at the same time to interconnect those two systems. The estimated cost at the time this was prepared, which again, I believe was 2 years ago, was a little over $5 million. That would provide redundancy. It would connect these two systems so that if we lost a well or a storage tank or something like that in the one system, we could feed the other system through that interconnection. That also reduces the operational costs of operating these plants independently. We could potentially get a combined permit, which would reduce the amount of monitoring, laboratory work, chemicals, staff, et cetera, that it might take to operate these plants. So of that 23 million, again, 5 million of it would be related to a water line upgrade. So I would kind of take that out of what we're talking about in terms of the decommissioning. Then you see the cost of the force main, which I believe is about 2.6 million. All right, folks, 2.6 million. You see the reclaimed water main, you're looking at 13.5 million. I'm sorry, the reclaimed water piping, not a water main, but a wastewater, really, it's reclaimed water. The cost for that would be 13.5 million. Again, this is an estimate, it's a couple years old. That would not be funded by the current ratepayers. If we were to do that, it would be because we're providing reclaimed water to potentially a data center or similar type industry located in the industrial park. So that would not come out of your pocket. It would be financed by proposed development. Then you see pump station improvements here. I believe that's about $600,000. And then finally, the actual decommissioning of the Oakland Park system, $1.3 million. So if you look at the overall totals here, you're talking about $23.7 million. We can take out 13.5 of that from what it would cost ratepayers. Again, that would be funded by a potential developer. And then the water main project, that would be separate, potentially eligible for grant funding. You're looking at about $5.6 million. So we're really more down about $10 million. I'm sorry, $5 million to decommission the Oakland Park wastewater plant. One of the advantages to that, again, at the moment we have 5 wastewater plants. We're taking out Perkins Corner now. We're shifting that flow to Hop Yard. If we were to also decommission the Oakland Park plant, we'd be down to 3 treatment plants. Again, the cost to staff it, the cost to operate it, the cost of chemicals, the cost of treatment, permitting, all of those things would result in a savings. And I believe the next slide, Jackie, if you can go to that, describes these savings. Again, these estimates are a little bit out of date, but the annual cost to operate the current wastewater plant at Oakland Park, roughly $500,000. The Hop Yard plant, you're talking about $880,000 for a subtotal of 1.36. The future cost to operate the Hop Yard plant, if we were to divert flow from Oakland Park, at the time this was done, would be about $950,000. So you're looking at a yearly savings of about $409,000. So just to put that in perspective, if it was going to cost us roughly $5 million to decommission the current Oakland Park plant, and we would save $400,000 a year, you're looking at about a 12-year cost-benefit analysis in terms of return on your investment. So although there would be some upfront costs, i.e. potentially debt, you would recover that in a short period of time through long-term operating costs. So the chairman, Chair Bender, had asked me to make sure this report was public because this is something we're going to be discussing over the next few months and years. The 33-page engineering report or preliminary engineering report is certainly available to anybody who would like to see it. We will probably also add it to our website. I believe there is a section on the website that talks about annual reporting or engineering reports. We can put it there. But if anybody has interest in this information or questions about it, or if we're dealing with future developers and we're looking for proffers of things that we need help with, this is a good place to start. So are there any questions about that before I proceed?
Mr. Hamilton, I did.
Yes, sir.
I had 2 questions. I think you were pretty clear on that. The assuming the board kind of stays the way it is, the county portion of that spreadsheet that you put up there would be about $10 million for our portions of running the water and sewer lines from Oakland Hop Yard system.
Correct. About 5.3 million of it would be the actual work necessary to decommission the Oakland Park plant, i.e. the sewer line and the decommissioning of the plant itself. The other 5 million would be the water line.
Redundancy.
Potentially, there may be developers along the way between those interconnections who we could get to pay for part of that cost. If we need to extend the current system to provide service to them, typically they would be responsible for that funding. So yes, sir.
And then this is sort of a history question. So we got ARPA funds when we were decommissioning Perkins to connect that through
to Hop Yard.
And it went through the Arnold's Corner area and picked up those 2, right? So what was the reason this didn't get included in the ARPA funds?
I'll be honest, I can't answer that. To be clear, for those of you that don't know, I've been here since last summer. This report was prepared a couple years ago, and the politics or the technical reasons why certain things weren't included, I just can't speak to it this time, and I'm sorry. I'd be glad to
that's fair. Okay.
To research that and respond, but I can't tell you now, and I don't want to make it up.
It just seems like we were so close to having everything along the Rappahannock connected, and
Yep.
this didn't make the the cut list?
Well, I'll be candid. I've said this to some other folks. You know, there's an opportunity, anywhere there's an opportunity to interconnect a system, if nothing else, for emergency sake, i.e. the Dahlgren system that belongs to the service authority and the Dahlgren system that's operated by the base. If one system has a problem, potentially other system can help out. I think people forget, and this is going to come up in a minute in my general report, but we're a 24/7 business. Nobody thinks about water and sewer until you don't have it. Then the phone starts to ring. We take that very seriously. It's certainly a matter of public health, and redundancy and interconnections are the way to go. Having an emergency well that you can just start up and use when you need it, it's not that simple. The testing required, the monitoring required of the water supply, all those things, it's not just flipping a switch. So interconnecting these systems any way that we can do it, especially if we can put the burden on new growth. Not something I can control, by the way, the growth, that's up to you folks. But once we know it's going to happen, then that's where the opportunity is to spread that cost. So yes, sir. Yep. Is there anybody online that has a question about this? I know this is a little complicated. Again, it's a more complicated engineering report, and there's some things missing, but this is where we're at. All right, Mr. Robotham, is it all right if I move on?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So the second item on the agenda here that's in my purview, of course, is just an update on the status of the surplus property sale. As I believe many of you may know and some of you may not, we have two pieces of property for sale right now to the general public. Anybody can bid on them. The sealed bids are due next Tuesday, February the 10th by 4 p.m. They should be submitted to the King George County Service Authority, which I believe the address is 9207 Kings Highway, right up the street. We have a 1/10 of an acre for sale in Fairview Beach, I have it right, and we have a 1/2 an acre for sale in Presidential Lakes. At the moment, the board has not, to my knowledge, expressed a preference that you have to be an adjacent property owner to buy that property. That was recommended at one point, but was not part of the motion taken by the board or the action taken by the board. So at the moment, that's a public sale. I just wanted to tell you, so far, we've received 2 sealed bids. I believe there's a third one. If I don't have it, I will have it in the next day or so. I have not opened those. I don't intend to open those. I will be opening those in front of a notary at 4 o'clock or 4:01 on Tuesday, February the 10th. There are about a 6 or maybe a few more people who have made inquiries about this over the course of the last few months. I'm going to personally reach out to those that have made their interest known and just remind them that that deadline is next Tuesday. And of course, once that time passes, I'll open the bids, I will review them, and then I'll provide you all some type of summary report so that we can take action on the 17th to facilitate that sale. And to be clear, these are both surplus properties that have no use to the service authority. There was equipment there in the past, it's been removed, or they're sold as is. We don't need the property. We won't need the property in the future. So that's why we're getting rid of them. We don't want to be maintaining property for no reason. It's just an expense we don't need. One of you had asked about the costs. I believe I supplied that for you to abandon wells and do some other things. Do you want me to discuss that now or no?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the update I have on surplus property. Any questions about that? Apologize, folks. Feel like every time I turn away from the mic, I'm gone. All right. Well, I'll proceed with the general manager's report. I will try to keep it short. There's been a lot of talk already about the storm. Winter Storm Vern, is that what they named it? In any case, much of the last 2 weeks has frankly been consumed at the Service Authority by preparations for the storm and a response to the storm. I want to, before I do go any farther, thank Ms. Lovell and a few other people for your kind words. I'm going to keep striving to meet or exceed your expectations. As I said a minute ago, water is a 24/7 business that nobody thinks about until you don't have it. And I'm going to come to where we've had some complaints about that in a minute. But we knew about this storm at least a week, if not 2 weeks beforehand. I think most of the local news stations were pretty adamant that we were up for some type of event. At first, there was talk of a snowmageddon and 2 feet And towards the last few days, of course, that was reduced down to more like 6, 8, 10, 12 inches and some ice. Ice is clearly the enemy of utilities, causes power outages, and we certainly received a fair bit of that. But I will say we were involved with the preparations and the coordination through the Emergency Operations Committee. I'm grateful for being included in that, and there were certainly board members who attended those meetings. There was valuable information presented and shared, and there was also a lot of coordination. Our staff, I believe we have over 50 different facilities, and I'm talking about buildings, structures, i.e. pump stations, water tanks, wastewater plants, and other things that all require entrance and all have emergency power. So we went ahead of time and made sure that, fuel tanks were full and generators were operating. And then once the storm began, we were out, I think from very early that Sunday morning, pretty regularly for the next week or so, plowing and attempting to de-ice and make sure that there was the ability for people to come and go from these facilities. The wastewater plants and the water treatment plants are generally staffed every day. So people need to be able to come and go. We need to be able to get chemical deliveries. We need to do things like that. And there really, again, there's just no excuse. There's no snow closure or school closure or sorry. We just have to keep that going. So I do want to thank the small staff we have of maintenance people who worked very hard through that storm. On days where we're closed for snow emergencies, they're essential employees who work and don't make any extra money. They don't get a day off. They don't get a snow day. They don't get time and a half until they've worked more than 8 hours. They work very hard. So I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the county folks who we coordinate with. I believe Parks and Rec and General Properties. We borrowed some equipment from them. In fact, a skid steer, which I heard one of you mention was hard to come by because there became a point in this storm where you really couldn't plow it with a truck. You needed heavy equipment to break it up. And we had places like that. So again, much of the last 2 weeks has been kind of consumed with either preparing for the storm or recovering from the storm. We are still doing that. And before I forget this, I do want to point out one thing that hasn't come up yet tonight that I witnessed today. And this is still a major hazard, but I was sitting in the office about 3 o'clock this afternoon when a sheet of ice broke loose from our roof. And I thought a tractor trailer had struck our building, which is a little tiny brick building right up the street here, but extremely dangerous. Water weighs 8.34 pounds per gallon. I assume ice weighs the same thing. I can't convert a square foot of ice into a gallon for you in my head, but I can tell you that was a couple thousand pounds that fell off that roof. If that hits you in the head or strikes a vehicle that you're driving, you're in a world of trouble. So I'm just reminding everybody in this room, and our fire department friends are here and others, just because we're through the worst of the weather doesn't mean that during the next few days of warmer weather that these things aren't going to break loose and come up off the roof. So be careful of that when you're coming and going from buildings and when you're getting in and out of your cars and when you're behind a tractor trailer that's got something on the roof. Don't tailgate is my best advice to you. In any case, so that's really what we've been consumed with for the last couple of weeks. There have been some other things going on that I can report back on later, but I also want to mention the issues that were reported at Hop Yard. Roughly about last Wednesday or Thursday, which was about 5 or 6 days into this extreme cold snap, we started to get a significant number of complaints about low water pressure in the Hop Yard area. As I understand it, there's 899, if not 900 homes in Hop Yard. And we probably received over a 2-day period complaints from about 50 people about low water pressure. Initially, we attempted to respond individually to each one of these customers that reported this issue. Because we generally don't attempt to or ask to access private property, particularly if people aren't home, our responsibility is to dig up and excavate the water meter that is located at your property line, which kind of defines the difference between public service and private service. We put a meter there with a flow testing gauge, and we can identify your pressure and make some calculations about the amount of water that's flowing. And in every one of the cases where we visited these properties, we found normal pressure and normal flow, but we continued to get calls. So after some research and checking very thoroughly at the plant that serves the Hop Yard area, we came to the conclusion that it was very likely an issue related to extremely cold It's potential and possibility that some of the water lines in the Hop Yard subdivision were not buried below the frost line depth. And I don't mean the water mains because we've exposed those when we've had leaks. I'm talking about the service lines in people's yards. I can't prove this. I can't guarantee this, but I've seen this before. I worked through an ice storm 30 years ago where I had water mains freezing in the road. But anyway, the piping is either too shallow and it's transferring cold into the service line that is feeding these homes. And there are also, for whatever reason, it appears that many of the homes in the Hop Yard community have a pressure reducing valve installed on their home plumbing where the service comes through the wall into the home. And thankfully, there's a couple people in this room, including Chief Moody and Mr. Robotham, who I was able to communicate with about their observations because we had a number of people who were convinced that this was a service authority problem. The problem is we would have one person on one side of the street who's complaining about low pressure, somebody next door who had no problem, which is another clue to us that this is not a system issue, but an individual plumbing issue. I can't prove it. I haven't been able to say with certainty what the issue is. I'm quite certain it was related to water temperatures, water lines that are not below 36 inches, which is typically the level of the frost line, and also the plumbing code requires that a water line be buried below 36 inches, could potentially be affected by extreme cold. And I don't think any of us in our memory have witnessed cold like this. As I understand it from the local news, we haven't had 10 days below 20 degrees since like 1872. So we're talking about an extreme event. We never had anybody lose pressure. After the first 24 to 48 hours of these complaints, I kind of generated some information for the ladies that answer the phone to share with people. We encourage customers to run the water in their home, to pull warm water in from the main. The groundwater that we provide as a source to you is typically 55 or 56 degrees. It stays roughly that temperature as it moves through the treatment process and is transmitted to you through the water mains. If we find that the water is much colder than 56 degrees, it's a pretty good clue that there's something happening where it's taking on cold. So we feel pretty confident that that's what the problem was. We are not 100% certain. I've tried to provide a written response to everybody that has created an inquiry, and there's been a few. We have tried to circle back with all the customers that have contacted us. I just want to say that we are aware of the problem. We're doing everything we can to make certain that it is not a problem on our end. We have made some adjustments on pump settings in terms of when the pumps kick on and off to help keep pressures from dropping low. But at any time, please do call us. We do not monitor social media. I understand there was a lot of angry people on social media. I don't have any way to get that information. We count on you to let us know. So I don't want to not acknowledge that. Again, I appreciate the help of people who are willing to communicate about what they were observing rather than just be angry and make accusations. I understand that it's frustrating. To the best of my knowledge, no one lost water at all. They may have had some low pressures. I do want to point out that one of the advantages that people don't think about when you're connected to a central water system or a community water system, you're not on your own well. So if your power goes out, guess what? You've still got water. Again, we have standby generators at almost every one, if not every one of these facilities. So you don't lose your water. You also still have fire protection through those fire hydrants, which is provided to you, I'll say, free of charge. You don't get a bill for that. There are people who are protected by our fire hydrant system who aren't customers, but they get a benefit from that. And of course, we want that. We don't want anybody to lose life or property. So I just want to be clear, we're well aware of the issues. We're doing everything we can to say with certainty what the problem is. This is one of those things that's taken me kind of a process of elimination, trying to make sure that I know what isn't the problem before I can say what is. I know there are customers that have complained about low pressure in Hop Yard 6 months ago or a year ago at times that weren't extreme cold. Those were very likely, and I believe we know, were related to water main breaks or other issues where air got in the system and it causes intermittent problems. That is not the problem right now. I'm almost certain it's related to extreme cold. So I just want to say I appreciate everybody's patience. I understand that you're frustrated. We are doing everything we can to make sure it's reliable and it's safe, And again, no one lost water. We maybe got one call today, 2 yesterday, so the number of complaints has gone way down. But again, if you have a problem, please reach out. Don't assume that we know, and we will do the best we can. So with that, I think I've probably spoken enough this evening. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Because earlier we had some issues with GoToMeeting. I couldn't chime in. I wanted to clarify with Mr. Metz. He did ask a question about the Oakland Park system and the decommissioning. Unfortunately, it was there was not, when we finally processed the ARPA paperwork, the costs had gone up and there was not an ability to put both projects together for use with the ARPA funds, because that was the original intention. And Mr. Metz, if you want further information, you can just call me.
Thank you. That's good enough. And yeah, understand we all have to fit within our budgets. So makes sense. Yeah, I do agree. At some point, we need to, glad we'll be talking about this over the coming months to years. That system is getting rather dated.
Well, I just want to be clear, there were some folks, I think, that made inquiries implying that the system was overloaded. In other words, there were too many connections or in some other way that there was something related to planning or system failure. That is not the case. I can tell you for a fact that is not the case. We have enough water. We can electronically monitor the operation of our generators and the pressures in the treatment plants. We can also electronically monitor your use at your water meter, so we can tell how much is flowing in gallons per minute. We don't do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but the data is there and we have the ability to call it up and review it. We do that all the time when we're reviewing bills. We had customers today who we could see were using 200 gallons an hour who normally use 10. That's a clear indicator that either something is really wrong or a garden hose is left open and they're watering, which I don't think anybody's watering their grass right now. So, I mean, we have ways of being able to monitor this type of thing. I also yesterday ordered a piece of equipment that I can install in a customer's home that will record pressures over a 24-hour period or a 7-day period. There are electronic devices that I did not buy because they're more expensive that can actually send me that data through a cell collection. But we're planning to deploy this in places where people are complaining about persistent problems, because if we can identify when that problem is happening and be certain that it is happening, that gives us better and more information to try and resolve what it is. But again, we're aware of it and we're working on it. And one thing I left out and I wanted to address because it came up this evening in some of the public comment, to be clear, the data centers that I am aware of, none of them are looking to use groundwater for cooling water. The one data center that I think, I'm not talking about the Amazon one, the Dahlgren West one that is scheduled to go in on 301 near Dahlgren, is talking about using our wastewater as a cooling device. That would be at their expense. It would not cost the ratepayers a penny. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's getting twice the use out of the same resource. It will still be discharged back to the environment. It will still be discharged in a way that meets the standards of the Clean Water Act. It will not be an impact on your pocket, and it will not be an impact on the resource. Now, they'll have some potable water usage as any commercial building would, whether it was a restaurant or a real estate office or whatever. And if, you know, they meet the standards and are approved by the planning commission and this board, then we will provide the service as appropriate. But I'm not in a decision-making capacity, and the service authority is not in a decision-making capacity. We will simply make sure, and I will simply do everything I can to make sure that the resource is protected for the people that are already on these systems. You will not have that resource impacted or less water because they're there. So on that note, I do also want to point out that there is a memorandum of understanding that we are in the process of finalizing with the Dahlgren Innovation Hub. That document has been somewhat confidential or still under review until the last few days. I believe that I know for a fact that it's now a draft that's available to anyone that wants to review it. And Chair Bender asked me today if we could distribute that to the board tomorrow, which I will do, and then we'll more than happily share it with anybody else that wants to see it. We want to be completely transparent. And again, we are not offering them any kind of a deal. They will pay the same rates for water and wastewater that you do. And if they're going to make use of our wastewater through a recycled waste stream, that cost and impact will be solely on them and the maintenance of that. That would be kind of standard business. So I understand the concerns. Folks are in a difficult situation. You want to keep your taxes down. You want to keep your rates down. The same sense, you need resources and income, and I understand your dilemma. So I hope that's clear, and I think that concludes my report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Any further questions from the board? All right, moving on to secondary public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly included in the record. Is there anybody for secondary public comment for the Service Authority? All right, seeing none. Mr. Dines, is there anybody online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, seeing nobody, I will go ahead and close secondary public comment and look for a motion for adjournment.
Move that we adjourn the Board of Directors to Tuesday, February 17th, 2026 at 5:30 PM in the boardroom of the Revercombe Building.
Second.
Motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye, and that is the end of the Service Authority this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, back to the Board of Supervisors. There's no public hearings tonight. We will kick it off with presentations. Item 0202, Paladin Solar Farm Special Exception Request.
Jackie, it's working? Yeah, okay. It's working. Go back. Okay. Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Solons and supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity to present our Powhatan Road Community Solar Project this evening. My name is Kara Romaine, and I'm the development manager for this project. Tonight, I will give a project overview, which will include the purpose of this project, some of the site details and site design, as well as going over some community engagement we've done over the last 9 months. And of course, we will be around for questions. In the room with me tonight, we have our landowner, Larry Carr, who has been living and farming in this community for decades. It's been a true honor getting to know him throughout this process, and his wife Patty as well, to learn how this small solar project will help to alleviate financial pressures and maintain ownership of this family generational farm. And then also with me is co-owner of ESA, Justin Vandenbroek. He helped co-found ESA back in 2017 and has been working in the solar industry for about 15 years. So this project is intended to be part of the Virginia Shared Solar Program. This is a statewide program that allows projects 5 megawatts or less to participate. The program allows Dominion Energy customers to subscribe to a portion of a solar project like this and receive around 10 to 15% bill savings, electricity bill savings every month. Projects are subscribed on a first come, first served basis, and there's no obligation for subscribers to, have this long term. You can cancel it at any time. You can take it with you if you move or whatever, if you don't want it anymore. And we would expect for a 4.99 megawatt project, this could serve up to 1,000 households and save subscribers about $5.4 million over 20 years. And part of the program dedicates 30% for low to moderate income residents, such as, folks like on fixed income, like retirees, ensuring electricity bill savings for those who may need it most. And before zooming into the project site, just giving everybody a context of where the project is located, which is in the heart of the James Madison district. Zooming in, you can see the project area highlighted in red, and it is located east of Port Conway Road and west of Millbank Road. We would expect traffic related to the project to likely enter off of Port Conway Road or 301 South. We recognize and understand that the road coming from Millbank, that turn by the church, is quite tight and probably hard to navigate for large construction vehicles. So that's why we have those two routes highlighted there. Projects of this size do not require substation construction to be next to the solar projects. We connect to the existing three-phase distribution line along Powhatan Road. That power line runs to the Arnold's Corner substation a few miles away. We do have an executed interconnection agreement study with Dominion Energy. This agreement allows us to legally connect to the power line for the life of the project. And giving some additional context of what we have going on the property currently and how the project would fit into that. The project area is about 24 acres. The remaining 40 acres of the farm field will remain. We are preserving the forest to the south as well as the forest to the north of the array on Larry's property. Of course, Larry and his wife and his animals will all still be on the property as well. And just to give a little bit more perspective on size, again, this is 24 acres and just some perspective that it's smaller than the about 30-acre horse track on the adjoining property. Okay, the next handful of slides will be a site tour, so with some renderings and photos. Starting to the west, this is the existing conditions. And then looking towards after construction, and once we plant the 30-foot wide landscape buffer around the project fence line, these trees will be 6 feet tall at planting. And just to give a rough number, the amount of trees that we'll be planting to help conceal the project will add up to roughly about 2.5 acres of new trees. And all right, within 5 years, we would expect the trees to grow to around 13 to 15 feet tall. Just for some additional context, the panel height is 11 feet at its greatest max tilt, and the panels are 100 feet away from property lines and Powhatan Road. Now, in the middle of the site, we have some more site details. We will be adding a 20-foot wide entrance to both the north and south arrays. The access roads are designed based off VDOT feedback and their standards. Again, the area in green around the fence line, that's just kind of giving a top-down view of that planted buffer around to conceal. The equipment pads are going to be in both the north and the south array sections. The equipment pads essentially house the transformer pad and the inverters, which collect the power and then connect to the electrical line to send to the substation. And that's what I'll just point out for now. Okay, so at the Planning Commission meeting and, of course, at our community meeting, we received quite a few questions regarding stormwater management. And so to directly respond to these questions, we contracted Kimley Horn to create a preliminary stormwater management plan. This is not the final robust civil plan that will be required to be submitted prior to any land disturbance, but we wanted to help give a better idea of what stormwater features will collect that erosion and sediment control. So on the northern array, these drainage areas, so basically what Kimley Horn does is they take the topography of the site and they correlate these drainage areas for where water runs off currently. So because there are multiple smaller areas of drainage, they would expect that to implement features like silt fences or earthen berms or diversion ditches to collect any stormwater and erosion. But on the southern array, you'll see here that a pond location is proposed or will likely be proposed on the southern part of the panel area and inside that fence line, just because it is such a great area of drainage. I will note that, this size of the pond is not final, but that will likely be the location where you'll collect stormwater. But also to add, again, with the preservation of forests to the north and the south, that plays a really great advantage for us because, as we know, soil remediation for cleared forested areas is very tough to remediate the soil and ensure proper runoff of erosion and stormwater. So because we are not going to be clearing any trees, that plays a really good point for us. Also, the topography is very flat, so we won't need to grade the land. So that will also play a really big role in ensuring proper stormwater runoff and management. So these are just a few pictures just to contextualize some of the things that I've been talking about. On the left, you have the single axis tracker, which we'll be using for this project. They're mounted on a tracking system that rotates throughout the day to collect sunlight. We'll be planting native pollinator-friendly ground cover underneath the panels. The top right, that is the area of the equipment pad that I pointed out a few slides ago with the string inverters and the transformer and control box. String inverters are much smaller than central inverters. They're much quieter than central inverters. And we will ensure that we follow the noise ordinance and comply with those conditions that staff has for us. Additionally, the project will be enclosed with a woven wire fencing. This is going to be 8 feet tall. We prefer this kind of fencing because it fits more in with the rural landscape rather than the typical chain link fence that you see on some projects. We will be using crystalline solar panels. These are very safe. They're commonly used. They're used on homes, they're used on farms. Very similar to what's in our cell phones. You have the glass, the silicon cells, and the aluminum frame. And finishing up the site tour on the east, again, with the current conditions. And this is also a better view of that 3-phase line that we'll be connecting to. And then at planting with that 30-foot landscaping buffer, 6 feet tall trees. And within 5 years, we expect that the project will be largely concealed from folks driving along the road. Construction, we typically, of course, get a lot of questions about construction for a project of this size. Construction typically takes around 6 to 9 months. It starts with the initial site work, getting the ground ready, stabilization. Then you have the delivery of the piles. You basically lay them out where they'll be driven. Next, you have the pile driving. This is typically the most intrusive part of construction. It is the loudest part of construction, but again, small size project. This is done within 3 to 4 weeks. The panels and the racking are then assembled. That's really mostly done by hand and hand drills. And then the project is connected to the grid. And most importantly, of course, decommissioning. We submitted a decommissioning plan as part of our application. And the decommissioning process is simply the construction process in reverse. And this process typically takes about a month or two. And then, of course, as required by Virginia law, we are required to post a decommissioning bond in the amount that it would cost to remove the project. The bond is put in the county's name. It has to be updated every 5 years. There are 18 conditions that staff has proposed. We are in agreement with all of them. Some of the ones that I wanted to highlight are the water quality monitoring. We have to test the water quality at different baselines and different intervals. Again, as I mentioned, erosion and sediment control and stormwater management plans have to be approved before we can start construction. With the equipment standards, that is going to be subject to the Department of Defense review to ensure electromagnetic compatibility. And we have to coordinate with the training or with the fire and rescue and comply with all the fire codes. I know Chief Moody is here. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him in person, but I did speak with him a couple months ago to ensure that he was okay with our plans. And as long as we comply with what staff has in our conditions, they're okay with our project. Neighbor engagement is very important with any project that we do, through one-on-one door knocking with all adjoining neighbors, the community meeting, and one-on-one meetings with neighbors and door knocking with neighbors along Powhatan Road and around touching the project. We wanted to make sure that the neighbors and the community felt that they were contributing to this project and we were collaborating with them to present the project that we have for you tonight. And just some other things that we've been fortunate to be part of, sponsoring the Fall Festival, providing a grant to Love Thy Neighbor, and we are in active conversations about entering into a multi-year sponsorship with the high school pre-apprenticeship program. With that, I am done with my part, but happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kara. All right, we'll shift over to questions, kind of like what we did last week. Instead of doing popcorn questions, I want to let each supervisor finish their train of thought. If y'all have stuff to piggyback, that's feel free, but I would like to, so ready? No questions? All right, Mr. Metz.
Just a clarification, thank you for the presentation, but when you talked about travel into the site during that 3-week construction phase, I'm sure you've been out to the site, and I think you had talked about the hard turn off of Millbank. I've driven to this site as well. It's also a pretty difficult turn there off of Port Conway. Have you guys had any conversations with VDOT, like maybe temporary help with your biggest trucks there from particularly if they come off of Route 3? That the way the yield works there is they have to yield to oncoming traffic from Port Conway. I would suggest they come off of 301 and that way we can make a right-hand turn, but then it's a 90-degree turn as well. So I would strongly, I guess it's more just a suggestion than a question.
Okay.
Please consider the traffic flow in Port Conway when you're doing the 3 weeks of construction.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that suggestion. Thanks.
Ms. Bender?
Thank you very much. I do have quite a few questions, but I wanted to, the one thing Mr. Metz just said, I'm concerned about accessing the property on Port Conway, right where that turn is to Powhatan, because that is a very dangerous intersection. You're bringing in some big construction traffic. When I spoke to Mr. Beal a couple of weeks ago, he said you haven't had any conversations with VDOT about that road to make sure that if anything happens there, it's brought back up to standard. Have you had conversations with VDOT about that road?
No, we have not had conversations with VDOT. I believe they provided their review on our entrance, but I do know what turn you're talking about and agree that is a very dangerous turn.
Just bringing a car is scary enough, if you've got a big construction. That's why I'm asking that. Now, you mentioned the stormwater runoff. I've driven that road when it's rained. There is some runoff that comes onto the road, and you're now taking ag land and now putting big panels there. What is the assurance that there's not going to be stormwater runoff? Because there already is some now.
Yeah, so the good thing about this site, like I mentioned, is that it is very flat.
Just
and
with the little rain just being in a farm.
Yes, and that's where those drainage areas that I had on the slide. Maybe I can go back, but ensuring that we have proper features like those silt fences or diversion ditches, those all come into play with the 30 to 90% civil and stormwater plans. That is a very robust process with DEQ that we won't get approval until there's adequate features and mitigation measures to ensure that there's not a lot of runoff or not a lot of runoff from on the road.
Okay, and then another question about the disposal of the panels. I know you drive down 17, and there's a lot of solar farms that have panels just thrown on that when they have to replace them. They're just left there. They're not put in. What is the assurance that the panels will be gotten off the property and disposed of? And there's lots of pictures online with these ice storms all across the country of the panels being damaged from ice storms. Like, what is your plan about doing that and disposing of them?
Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, it's just our standard operating process not to leave excess panels on the site. There's no value to the project to leave them there, so they would just be hauled away and disposed in accordance with state regulations.
So I would like to see something in there that's an assurity that they're just not left there.
We can work with staff. I mean, I do want to be mindful of when you are doing operation and maintenance and you're in the midst of construction that it's not misinterpreted if we're in the middle of doing a module replacement that a pallet situated for replacements is being misinterpreted. But point taken that we could work with staff to make sure that we meet the needs and you're not stuck with an eyesore or blight, which I'm sure is mostly what you're trying to protect the community from.
Right, because they don't look very nice when you travel down 17. A couple of those farms, they're just stacked up. And so I just want to make sure. Then another thing, I mean, I know a lot of the solar farms use data to say after 30 to 40 years, it's going to be this great thriving farm, even better than it was before. And I've asked Caledon Solar, and when Gibson Solar comes back, I'm going to ask them again, do you have any projects in the United States that have been decommissioned after 35 to 40 years? Or only short data? Because I would like to see that data.
Yeah, we can point you to some research on that. Happy to. I mean, we work really closely with a firm that specializes in decommissioning projects, and that's what he does for a living. So he's constantly documenting and making sure that the best practices are put in place. So yeah, happy to point you to some information around that. But I think where you typically see the commentary around that, it has to do when you're converting land that's industrially farmed, where you're consistently tilling and extracting nutrients and don't have strong soil organic matter. And instead you're allowing the soil to rest. And so when you plant the right ground cover, just like if someone is setting up a good grazing operation and they're establishing their grazing mix, that seed mix is going to rebuild your soil health. And so if you're not constantly tilling and pulling out those root balls, then those root balls are going deep into the soil and rebuilding that SOM. And so that's where you typically get that commentary. But we also have an interesting video we can send you an email of an actual pile being removed from the ground. We asked our geotech consultant when they were doing pile testing recently to document that, because they drive piles in the ground to test and do the engineering in advance of the design of the site. And we asked him to also take videos of him removing that pile, because obviously he's not leaving it there. And it's just an interesting video we can send you if you're curious.
Yeah,
because I agree, there's not a lot of information widely out there.
Yeah, thank you. And then I know we've asked this question before with other projects. The solar panel makeup there to ensure that there's no foreign adversaries that, have any kind of components in the panel.
Yeah, these are to even comply these days and get tax credits. The FIOC restrictions, the foreign entity of concern restriction under the federal government, requires that China, Iran, Russia, and one other country are not manufacturing the equipment or financing the manufacturing of the equipment. And so we have to comply with that.
Okay. And
to qualify.
My last question is about, you mentioned about the community solar. For the public, how much is it to subscribe, and how far away can people access that? Is it just King George, or is it outside?
So any Dominion Energy customer can subscribe to Virginia Shared Solar, but we have the optionality to create registration window for King George residents, which is what we discussed with the Planning Commission in December. So if that's what you're getting at of making sure that you want benefits of this project to be rewarded by King George residents, we're happy to collaborate and build a website. And if the county wants to publicize that within what feels comfortable for the county of publicizing something that's private enterprise, we're happy to generate the website. You would save us money if you did that.
Well, with also too, how much does it cost to subscribe to get into it?
There's no upfront costs.
Okay, because usually when you think of subscription, there's usually a cost to that. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, well, you have to pay your electric bill.
Well,
So
that's important.
That is the cost. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Davis.
Just a couple comments. Ms. Carr, how many acres do you own? 358?
150.
158. All right. So just for people out there that may be interested. So we have a citizen who has 158 acres of land. He's looking to take up 24 acres to put a solar farm on, which this is one of those cases, and it's kind of like what we talk about the data center to me, where a project like this actually keeps the county rural, right? I mean, it gives you the ability to keep your land. It gives you, I mean, just from the studies I've done, I think it generates 24 acres can generate somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000. And then that pays property taxes, that pays other things. And I can't believe you haven't retired as a farmer already, but you're still out there kicking it. I mean, that's awesome. But this is the type of deal, like, you know, you'll get emails where people be against things, but these are the type of things that keeps your county rural. It enables you, and you keep your property and pass your property on to generation, things like that. And to me, it's a no-brainer for me. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Only one I've got left. They've hit mine mostly. Have you had any other interactions with the neighbors on the horse farm? I know there was a little bit of pushback. How's that going?
Yeah, Justin can speak to that.
Yes, sir. I spent 2 hours with them last month at the property with Mr. Guest himself and his attorney, and we walked through pretty much the identical presentation, went through each slide, answered their questions, and within 30 minutes of leaving the property, his attorney called me and let me know that they won't be filing any sort of appeal or intervention in it. So, and he also wants a lease agreement. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we had a really productive conversation. And once he understood everything and saw things like the woven wire fencing detail, the buffer detail, the setbacks, the stormwater plans, those were the main concerns. Is they want to protect their investment that they're making, and particularly stormwater is important to them. And so we spent a lot of time going through those details. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Actually, one last thing, Mr. Stroud. Sorry to put you on the spot. I think you were telling me a story, like an anecdote, a few weeks ago about your horse that accidentally ate some plastic or something. With your silt fences, are you planning on using anything like that? Is there any chance of that getting on the farm? Am I completely messing that up?
Yeah, it's different. It's that was hay netting, not silt fence is probably not going to appeal to a horse.
Okay, cool. The horse is smarter than me. Then again, most people are. So, okay. All right. Thank y'all very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 02-03, Agricultural and Natural Resource Program from Ms. Megan Williams. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I appreciate y'all having me here. I'm Megan Williams. I am the Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent for King George with Virginia Cooperative Extension. And I've been speaking a lot with Mr. James Shaw of the Economic Development Authority about sustainable agriculture in King George. And he encouraged me to come and present to you guys just about what I do. I've met a few of you, haven't met all of you. So just want to give a little overview of the program that I've got going on for context. If I can get this going. Just a little bit more about me. I was a Navy brat, so my brother was actually born here in Dahlgren. I moved around a lot, largely grew up in Virginia and San Diego, and that's actually a really funny connection to Mr. Shaw. His sister was my high school psychology and statistics teacher in Coronado, California. So it's a very small world that always brings you back here to King George. But I ended up back in Virginia for university, so I got my 2 BAs in environmental science and global sustainability from University of Virginia. Then I bopped up to New York for my master's in soil and crop science at Cornell before immediately coming down here to start working in King George. I also cover Caroline County, so I'm one of those lucky agents that gets multiple counties, but also we kind of serve a planning district model, so I also work a lot with the agents in Spotsylvania and Stafford, but we also kind of help out across the whole Northeast district. So over to the east and up to the north is where our Northeast district is. Based on my educational background, it makes sense that my passion, interest, joy is found in sustainable agriculture and soil health. So a lot of my programming, especially this year, is going to be focusing on that. If you're not familiar with Virginia Cooperative Extension, we are a partnership of Virginia Tech and Virginia State University. Our overarching goal is to build local relationships with collaborative partnerships to help put scientific knowledge at work in order to improve the economic, environmental, and social well-being of all of our constituents. And we do that by providing access to unbiased, scientific, research-based information that relates to locally defined issues and needs. Agriculture and natural resources is just one of the big facets of Virginia Tech. It might be how most people know us, or it might be through our 4-H programming. We also have family and consumer sciences, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. But for agriculture and natural resources, our main goals are to connect farmers and our community members, so our homeowners as well, to research-based information so they can better inform themselves on how to interact with our local farms, their local home environments, as well as our landscapes to keep them healthy, safe, and natural for a long time. My programming has kind of an annual cycle, just like our farms do. So some of the annual programs that we have are private and commercial pesticide applicator training and recertification. So Virginia Tech is partnered with Virginia Department of Agriculture to make sure that we're both getting our private and commercial pesticide applicators trained every year to keep their pesticide applications safe and healthy for our people and our environments. We also do soil testing. We help farmers with forage testing, and we annually host a well water testing clinic. We also host various conferences. The 5-County Ag Conference is our local ag conference that's hosted in January, and that's actually typically hosted down in Doswell and Caroline. We also have our Extension Master Gardener volunteers. That's another way you might have interacted with Virginia Cooperative Extension before attending one of their green talks in the area. I also kind of have a help desk function where people can call me, email me, stop by the office with any questions they may have that relates to anything in agriculture and natural resources. I'm definitely not an expert in all things, but we are well equipped to help find the information if we don't know it already. I also send out a monthly newsletter with things like events, programming, upcoming opportunities, research, and community spotlights that relate to agriculture and natural resources. So going from kind of the annual rotation to some of the specific things that I did outside of that last year in 2025, I received a cover crop research grant from the Virginia Ag Council because one of my major interests is cover crops and how we can continue to implement them in a sustainable way across the state. I've also helped out with Virginia Tech's corn earworm pest monitoring. So that's a major pest of corn and soybeans, if you aren't familiar with it. So we had a trap down by the bridge over to Port Royal. I've also collaborated with the library in a few different projects, their seed library, as well as their garden planting talks. At the church just down the road, we hosted the Eastern Virginia Forage Conference in collaboration with some surrounding counties. And of course, there's the Extension Master Gardener Green Talk series that I mentioned before. We really could not do a lot of our education without those Master Gardeners. And just those numbers on the side of the screen there. On the bottom is the number of people that I reached in King George in 2025 specifically across 36 different sessions. And the number on the top is kind of the number of people that I've reached across the whole area with my work with other counties. Looking forward to 2026. I can't believe we're already here and there's already things going on to my calendar for 2027. But like I said, I want to be focusing a lot on soil health this year. So I'm hosting a couple of soil health webinars that are aimed specifically at farmers to help them understand a little bit of the science behind this word soil health they may keep hearing and how they can actually implement those practices on their farms. We have a few beef producer focused things coming up, like a calving demonstration. And to tie into my cover crop research, I'll be hosting a cover crop and nutrient management field day down in Caroline. But like all programs in the area, farmers from every county are always invited. A big thing I'm excited for this year is I plan to start growing free vegetable seedlings through grants that I've gotten from community organizations like the Op Shop and the James Madison Garden Club, so that we can provide free vegetable seedlings for homeowners in the area to help them kickstart their own home food production, especially with rising costs of groceries. I'll be working with our 4-H agent on some youth pasture educational field days, be working with producers, hopefully to help them build some community through a summer potluck, and also help them build their knowledge with things like a farm disaster preparedness webinar, and information on navigating grants, cost shares, and loans to help keep them moving forward, especially in economically tough times. And an exciting thing that we have going on for the area at September is a pesticide container recycling drop-off program with VDACs to help, again, keep pesticides safe and properly used. So now we're kind of zooming back out to the long-term goals. All of those things that I listed before are kind of in support of a strong ag community in King George. Was, part of our history, and I want to keep it here. I am only one person, but hopefully the work that I'm doing will overall strengthen our ag workforce, both current farmers and our youth that hopefully will be coming into ag from King George. I hope to help strengthen ag business through production and marketing education. I'm not necessarily an expert in marketing, but I do know people that are and hope to bring them in for presentations in the county. Overall, economic, social, and environmental sustainability of ag is really important. All three of those parts of sustainability should be focused on, and I hope to continue to do so. I also hope to build agritourism capacity in King George through my advisory kind of help desk services by helping homeowners and homesteaders and small farms continue to learn how to be self-sustaining food producers while also bringing in that tourism to the county. And yeah, just overall help our farmers have successful niches here in King George. Earlier, I mentioned our 4-H positive youth development. So we have a 4-H agent as well in the office. She has a lot of 4-H clubs. You might have heard of the Livestock Club. It's kind of one of the things you traditionally associate with Extension and with 4-H. She also has educational programs through schools and community programs like the upcoming second annual 4-H County Fair in September. And we also have our family and consumer sciences agent. She does family support and education, food access and nutrition education, and financial stability and life skills. So if you look at ag and natural resources, 4-H, and family consumer sciences all together, you can kind of really see how Extension is working to make our community as a whole a better place for everybody. That is all I've got. I appreciate the time from you all. I'll happily take questions now, but also my email is always open, and would always happy to have you in the office to talk a bit more about the work that I do or how I can support King George. So I'll take any questions now if you have any.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at one of your slides. I think it's slide 8. And you talk about supporting the farmers of that. I know I've spoken to people from Virginia Tech that have courses in horticulture and that. Is there any thought about hooking up young farmers with older farmers that have the equipment and the land in some kind of way, a lease agreement or something to help young farmers get into the business? Because I know the cost of entry can be, quite high, and some kind of program to help facilitate that, to keep these farms farming.
Yes, yeah, no, I love that thought. I am aware of a program. I can't think of the exact name or organization that runs it right now, but there is a farmer mentoring program that does cover Virginia. I'd be happy to get in contact with you and send you that information. I also do think that on a more local level, if, I'm still building up my repository of contacts of every farmer that we have in the county. And luckily, often when new farmers move into the county, they do reach out to me for information. So I'm also building my contacts there. But, concerted effort to connect those farmers would be, I think, a positive thing. I think, lands and equipment are their own beast for people to hold on to them, maintain them, and access them. So I do agree that some sort of system to connect farmers, new and experienced, would be useful. And I'd be happy to, talk more with the board on how we could do that at a different time.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. All right, we'll shift over to action items. Our first item for action is 0204, a ratification of the local declaration of emergency by Chief Moody.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, good evening to you. In your packet is a resolution for the local declaration of emergency. This is a requirement under state law. So anytime a locality declares a local emergency at your next scheduled meeting, you have to have a ratification or a certification of that local declaration. Before you vote on that, I would like to just take a few minutes, give you a overview and a briefing of some of the operations that occurred, if that's okay. So during the period of the declaration, as some of these were already mentioned beforehand, there's always people out there that are going to give you, tell you about everything that went wrong. I made 10 bullets of pretty much everything that went well. And an all-hands operational weather briefing was held at the EOC on Thursday, January 22nd. This included county leadership in most county departments, public safety with the Sheriff's Office and Fire Rescue, State Police, Social Services, VDOT, Naval Activity South Potomac, Dahlgren Emergency Management, and Dominion Energy. This ensured everyone was on the same page right from the onset. Staff were prepared. Supervisor Metz hit the nail on the head, and that is, even though we didn't open a shelter, we were prepared to pull that trigger in the event it needed to. We were closely monitoring that situation pretty much on the hour. Supervisor Stroud had mentioned to his point that, when you open that shelter, you don't take it lightly. So there needs to be an identified need, not necessarily just, if it's just one or two people that have a need, you don't want to open up an entire high school gymnasium and cafeteria in order to do that. You can kind of facilitate that on a one-by-one basis. Fire Rescue and Sheriff's Office, along with the 911 Communications Center, had an increased posture with staffing and operational readiness and deployment. Over the span of the declaration, there were a total of 473 incidents, which included 116 fire and rescue calls, only 4 motor vehicle crashes, surprisingly enough. We did have 48 transports to transporting the sick and injured to regional hospitals, 37 disabled vehicles. And just to point out some of the more notable calls that we actually had during that time frame, I think as the chairman had mentioned, we certainly had a lot of slips and falls as expected. 15 in total that required folks to call 911. Many had head trauma and suspected broken bones. We had one car that was on fire next to a house. We had a snowplow truck that caught fire. We had a roof collapse in a commercial building in Dahlgren. We had 2 elderly patients with dementia that were found outside. They were found outside by their neighbors. I think one of the patients was still like in their nightgown and had to be treated for long, cold exposure. Very, very fortunate that they were found. 2 dogs had to be rescued. There were
folks had called and said, hey, look, I let my dog in the back, didn't know how icy it was, and they just went flying right down over the embankment. So our crews went out and rescued them. We had one lady we had to gain access to that was going in labor. We had one propane gas leak inside of a house. We assisted Westmoreland County with a house fire and also a man that had fell over the edge of a cliff. So that's just just a handful of some of the more notable emergencies we had during that week. We had a partial activation of our Emergency Operations Center. We created a staffing plan in an event that we had to ramp it up more if necessary. The weather forecast was pretty much accurate. We got to give the weatherman credit when credit's due, and pretty much, the weather was on spot. The forecast was. Sustainable power, the sustainability of the power grid. If we didn't have the power grid and we didn't have power, and we had a loss of power throughout our county, this incident, an event would have been a whole different animal. We could have had long-term shelters open, but really what kept us pretty much at bay was having the sustainability power grid. And that says a lot for Dominion and Northern Neck, clearing the right-of-ways throughout the years and periodically. It was also that the storm, the event, you didn't see a lot of ice in the trees, as you saw like out in the western part. If that would have happened, we could have been dealing with a much different situation. We were tracking some small outages, I think that Supervisor Metz had mentioned earlier. So we were reaching out to those people and, doing everything like opening up the fire station in Fairview Beach as an emergency warming shelter if needed. The fuel depot at Company 1 was filled prior to the storm and was operational. Public outreach and messaging was in place and kept our citizens informed throughout the event. VDOT was well prepared and was deployed around the clock, putting the priority and focus on the primary and secondary roadways. Good operational, we had great operational direction from county leadership and Supervisor Stroud and Mr. Smolnick, and transparency on policy decisions along with daily updates from David Beal about the status of VDOT and roadways and such. And last but not least, big thanks to our citizens, because, that's what makes King George great. And the citizens, I've heard numerous stories. The citizens were prepared. The first couple of days, there wasn't anybody on the roads. They heeded the warnings. They stayed off the roadways. They made our job easier in the first 48 hours. They stocked up. They were prepared if the power went out. We had a lot of situations where neighbors were helping neighbors. We had the volunteer list, as was mentioned earlier, and people signed up to assist with snow removal and ice removal. So. All in all, we couldn't do what we do if it wasn't the support from the citizens and the support from the board. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about that. But the resolution you have in your packet, that will need to be voted on and approved so we can submit that to the state.
Thanks, Chief. Question, if you do activate a shelter like that, how do you close it down when all is said and done? What if you have lingering customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something you just kind of have to handle on a case-by-case basis. Our experience is after about 72 hours of somebody being out of their home and they're ready to leave. Okay. The biggest thing we monitor with that is, do they have power? Do they have heat in their house? If they do, a lot of times you don't have to kick them out. They're ready to leave. So there's we've never run into a situation where we've had just one or two people that needed to be there for, a day or two or three longer. A lot of times it's all within a matter of 24 to 48 hours. Things kind of clear up.
You're aware of Brisbane Center and Micah Ministries? And
yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. What's the significance of this declaration? How does it benefit the community that we made this declaration?
Yeah, so typically on large-scale weather events like this, we kind of look at, hey, what is the state doing? And the state, the governor has to declare a state of emergency. And then, usually the counties that are going to be impacted, like if we're incurring certain cost, this particular event, this storm was a weekend event. So you had to incur, you got some costs that are occurring from overtime. Certainly there's a lot of VDOT work and a lot of monies and funding going towards that. Some of those fundings actually go towards the locality's cost in regards to if there was a presidential disaster declaration. So if you don't declare a local emergency, then there's no possibility if there was a presidential disaster declaration that you could say, hey, this is what we had to spend in order to prepare and protect the public. You would have no chance of getting that returned. So that's one of the things. The other thing is that it also allows, if you had to make some emergency purchases, if you had to say, hey, we need to rent that skid steer, then you don't have to go through some of those more common day-to-day processes in procurement and such. The county administrator, could say, hey, we need that skid steer. We need to clear this off, and I'm making authorization to make that happen. So,
any other questions?
To the chief, anytime the locality declares a state of emergency, as the county administrator did, the law requires you all to ratify it at your next meeting, aside from trying to get any recovery of any funds spent. Law requires you to ratify that decision by the county administrator.
Just to contribute a little more history, right? Winter storms in this county have caused a lot of damage over the years. We're between two big rivers, and bodies of water move a lot of stuff around during winter storms. Having an emergency declaration enables us to apply for certain reimbursements down the road. And FEMA's granted us some significant funds in the past for certain storms that have occurred. And this one kind of falls into that as well. I don't know if I had an emergency declaration question, but Chief, I know you guys have still worked with a number of families and homes that are low or out of propane if they use propane heat. Do we have any sway? Because it seems like the big name companies are taking very much the tact of, I'd say USPS is, if it's not cleared, we're not going to deliver. And, we could have families that are dependent upon that as a heat source. I don't know if we have any sway in the county to influence that.
Yeah, that's a really tough question. And I have experienced talking with a couple families that were in that situation. And that is either, number one, their propane tank ran out, and now they're calling because they're smelling gas in the house, and it's a very cold week, and they're in need of getting that gas filled up. However, now we have a very unique situation, and that is, to get where they need to fill it is completely covered in ice. So I wish we had something that we could do. There really isn't. If I called AmeriGas as the fire chief and said, hey, these people are out, can you go fill them up? Most of the time in these cases, there's a backlog of a lot of other customers that are in that same situation. And there's also, emergency delivery fees they want to tack onto that. So I think one of them was down on Sedgwick, where they couldn't, just gaining access to the road was certainly an issue with the gas company. So it's certainly a problem. I don't know if I have an answer for it, though.
For this emergency, I think, in some ways we've ducked a worse problem, which would have been that if we had also lost electrical power. I think this is an opportunity. There are neighbors helping neighbors, thankfully, in this situation. Maybe something we ought to think about is we're planning out future emergency responses, like, you know, because we do have plans if we were to lose power and the things that we go down there as well. Just something to consider. There's a lot of people here that are on propane as a source of heat. Thankfully, in this case, we still have electric. It's very expensive, but space heaters, you know, and the such do help. So anyway, no, thanks. I just wanted to make that part of the public record there. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody else? All right. Do you have a motion?
Yes, sir. I'll make a shot at this. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution, a declaration of local emergency resolution declaring a local emergency to exist in King George County, Virginia. Whereas on January 22nd, 2026, the county administrator in his capacity as Director of Emergency Management issued a declaration of emergency declaration applicable throughout the entire county of King George pursuant to Virginia Code Section 44, Tag 146. 21 due to Winter Storm Fern and the impending snow and ice. And whereas the Board of Supervisors was not able to convene at the time of the declaration was made due to exigencies of time and impending inclement weather and hazardous road conditions and power outages persist. And whereas the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia authorize the Board of Supervisors to conform circumstances giving rise to the existence of a state of local emergency and to that end, state of emergency when conditions warrant. Now, therefore, it is hereby declared by the Board of Supervisors of the County of King George, Virginia, that a local emergency exists and continues to exist throughout the County of King George, Virginia, effective 11 a.m. on January 22nd, 2026, and be it further declared and ordered that during the existence of this emergency, the powers, functions, and duties of the Director of Emergency Management and the Emergency Management Organization and functions of the County of King George are those prescribed by the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the ordinances, resolutions, and approved plans of the County of King George in order to mitigate the effects of said emergency. Be it further declared and ordered, this state of local emergency shall end on January 30th, 2026 at 5 p.m. unless otherwise extended or sooner rescinded under law.
Well read, sir. Do you need a bottle of water after that? Thank
Second.
you. And seconded. Any further discussion? Just a roll call vote or just?
Discussion point. Is the 30th?
Go ahead.
I'm just curious. We had expenses related to this storm after Saturday. Did I read that right? Yeah, Saturday would have been the 30th at 5 p.m. Does it matter that, I mean, I guess the way you declared it when you started this, I don't know if we envisioned the extent of the ice problem that we had. I'm looking at Mr. Smolnick as well.
If you'd like to extend it, we can amend. I would just suggest amending, which is R-03-26 with a new end date of pick the date and time.
And
So
the
I
30th
thought
was Friday. The 30th was Friday.
Yeah, 30th was Friday. So there were some expenses incurred after that. So should the board so wish to entertain a motion to amend R-03-26, you could change that date till.
I would make a motion, we extend that date to today.
Friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment.
No second.
Second.
Okay. Friendly amendment properly seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Friendly amendment carries. And back to the original amendment. I'm sorry, back to the original motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Chief. All right. All right, 02-05, acceptance of the DCJS grant for drone replacement, Captain Steve Land, Fire Department.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Here tonight to speak to you about the Department of Criminal Justice Services Unmanned Aircraft Trade and Replacement Program Grant Award. Summary information: on December 30th, the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services notified King George County by email of the Unmanned Aircraft Trade and Replace Program Grant Award for $20,320, and a presentation will follow. So just real quick, just want to give a couple examples of what the county uses the drones for. This is a picture of the fire back in the summertime on Cook's Place. We use that just to help document the scene and, in our after action of the report. This is a video of a training we did. We simulated 2 lost hikers or missing children in the woods at night. And what we're seeing here up here is the thermal video of us locating the missing children. You can see them right there in the white colors right there, and the different palette right there in red showing heat. So, missing child, elderly person, definitely this is where the drones definitely help benefit and reducing manpower and searching these areas and locating the victims quicker. And this is just showing it highlighted right there. Information about the grant, details about the grant. The grantor is DCJS. And the purpose of this grant award, this is a very unique grant program to replace public safety drones that are manufactured by certain foreign countries. And as mentioned, the grant award that King George County received is $20,320. This grant has some unique requirements. We reviewed the paperwork, and it's definitely, we can meet these requirements, we feel. The certification of acquisition, we have to buy the replacement drone from a company, a manufacturer meets the requirements outlined in the grant details. And also there is replacing a drone, and the drone that we identified for replacement, we have to certify that the drone was destroyed. And the grant program talks about the process in order to meet the requirements to certify that. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the grant or the grant award.
Thanks, Captain. Any questions? Ms. Bender?
No, I don't.
Awesome. Do I have a motion?
We have you recommend action authorize acceptance of the DCJS grant in the amount of $20,320, appropriate $20,320 from the general fund balance, and authorize the county administrator to execute all necessary documents subject to approval as formed by the county attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have proper motion, properly seconded. Do we have any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Stroud?
Aye.
Mr. Metz?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you, Cap.
Thank you.
All right, over to discussion items. Bank of America purchasing card from Ms. Cook. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Okay, I'm here tonight to present about the Bank of America purchasing card, the P card program. All right, what is a P card? A P card is a company-issued credit card used for approved business purchases. It's designed to replace small dollar purchase orders and minimize employee reimbursements, and is only used for authorized business expenses. A few examples of authorized transactions are travel, training, conference fees, emergency purchases, dues, registration fees. How the P card program works. The P card helps reduce paperwork for both employees and the finance team. It improves the administrative process and improves tracking of expenses. This slide shows the P card workflow, starting with the cardholder making an approved purchase. After the purchase, the cardholder collects and uploads receipts and completes reconciliation in the system. The transaction then moves to the supervisor or approver for review. Once approved, the information flows to finance for reporting, compliance, review, and audit purposes. This process helps ensure purchases are accurate, documented, and aligned with policy. This slide details roles and responsibilities of cardholders, approvers, program administration, and finance. Controls and compliance. Each P card has built-in controls, including per transaction limits and monthly spending limits. Merchant category restrictions help prevent misuse, and transactions are monitored for unusual or potentially fraudulent activity, with audit-ready reporting and an easy dispute process. And these are some of the program benefits. There's no late fees, no finance charges, no expedited card delivery fees, rebate multiplier based on cumulative spending of all participants, fraud alerts and transaction monitoring, immediate card suspension if needed, secure online access for all users. And next steps. The first step of the next steps I forgot to include would be to authorize the county administrator to execute the Bank of America participant account form. We would then finalize the program policy, which would require the current credit card policy with the county to be updated, identify cardholders and approvers, configure limits and controls, and then launch training. And then finally go live with Bank of America P card program. Questions?
Thank you, ma'am. Do you have any ideas who your card holders are going to be at this time, or roughly how many cards we're going to have?
We currently, between the county and the sheriff's office, have 93 card holders.
Wow. That not kind of high?
I believe there might be steps to reduce those with this new policy.
Okay. And that's a curiosity. It just, wow. Okay. Did you need action from us tonight on this, or are you going to come back?
I would love action tonight.
Before we move into that, are there other questions? Matt?
I would just like to add something. So yes, this is a good time to look at how many credit cards we have out there and really identify, are they all necessary? And really, I've used a system like this at my previous place of employment. It's going to improve efficiency within the finance. It puts more onus on the individual who's making that purchase as far as coding it to the proper account. It takes a lot less work, and it takes work off of our finance team. Tracking down receipts and whatnot. There's a lot of that goes on with the system we're in right now. So I know when Ms. Cook first came to me, I was like, absolutely, this is a great thing. Let's get in front of our board. So I fully support this. Increase efficiency, look at the number of credit cards we have, and put more onus on those individuals who use the B card.
What kind of checks and balances do we have in place to ensure things are handled properly? I know in the government, I've got a travel card myself. There are tens of thousands of them, I'm sure, but it is very rigid. And if you misuse it, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. How do we handle that?
So I'm looking at my finance team. Those are our checks and controls, two of the individuals right there between Ms. Cobb and Ms. Dillard. As far as we have a policies of what you can use the credit card for right now. And I tell you, if there are charges that come up, and the finance crew spends a lot of time looking at this, and they'll come to me, Mr. Smolk, this is what was made. We look at it, nope, and we've denied requests because something was not made in accordance with the current policy. So the policy is in place. That was, and that I know Ms. Cook mentioned that would have to be readopted, with this new program. But of course, the final check are the auditors. I mean, they're going to pull anything that they want. But my finance team, we've got how many individuals do P card purchases go through in your office? 4 different individuals. So it's not like there's just one person reviewing everything. So I've got 4 professionals looking at this.
Other questions? You got one, bud?
Motion.
I have questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm curious, ma'am, any of you. So today, do you have a problem with people bringing receipts for purchases?
I can speak to it. Is that? Yes.
So what happens whenever somebody doesn't produce a receipt for a purchase today?
So right now, what we have to go through is our AP person, when they don't produce a receipt, an email is sent out with a copy of the policy, and we give them a timeline to turn in the receipt. We also CC Mr. Smallnick on that. And then if they don't produce the receipt, we pull their credit card, we turn it off. They're no longer able to use it, and we make them pay out of pocket for it if they don't produce a receipt, or they have to give us, we have a missing receipt form now. So there has to be some kind of justification for audit purposes for your purchase.
Okay, very good. So with this new program, whenever people make the purchase and they're going to have a receipt, are we going to have a way for them to, like, what they write on their receipt, like, what, because sometimes it's not legible. So maybe they handwrite the last four of the card, the purchase amount, the date, and who it was, or something on the receipt, scan it in and upload it to SharePoint or something like that.
So it will be they'll be directly responsible for loading all of that information into the Bank of America portal. So once they have issued their receipts, then it will go to the next step, which would be whoever the approver reviewer is. If anything's missing, it automatically gets kicked back to the cardholder. So it will not go through that, workflow before all those steps are completed. And then finally, it will end up with finance where they will complete the transaction for payment.
Okay, so I'm just curious, whenever they upload to the portal, they're going to take a picture with a cell phone and upload that, some way of getting that receipt uploaded to the portal.
They'll scan it.
Digitizing it.
Right, they'll scan it and then they'll upload it, and then they will be responsible for coding that receipt.
Okay, and you guys are going to provide them what the codes are.
Yes.
Yes.
Same structure that they currently have. That
Okay.
won't change. It's just putting more accountability on it's putting more accountability on the card holder. It cuts staff time down from chasing after people. And then when it comes to the audit process, we now have more of a audit trail, and we're more compliant by having a system like this. Right now with our current card, it's a small business card, and it's basically I can take this card and go anywhere. This new card, this P card, will have restrictions on it. So as a department head, I can say, okay, I want Kimberly to have a card, but I only want Kimberly to have travel options on her card. She will not be able to go to Walmart and use this card or things like that. So we're able to restrict it. Well, right now, we don't have that option.
Okay, no, that's good. And I'm not saying we have this problem, but in my business, and I don't have the problem, but I've helped entities with problems where they would put limits to the number of gallons because they may have their, people would have their wife pull up on the pump on the other side of their company vehicle, and they'd fill up their wife's car and in the company vehicle. So they've got 100 gallons of gas whenever the vehicle that they drive only holds 40. And so there's these alerts go off that are pre-programmed in and things like that. Okay.
Just a quick question. Didn't see it in the brief. No fee for King George on this. All of the Bank of America expenses are taken out of what they earn off of the card transactions.
That is correct. So they actually,
Really, my question is, and next year they're not going to hit us up for a fee?
no. So the multiplier for the rebate that the county would receive, there's a small percentage that they receive of that rebate. That's what pays for us to use this P card system.
Thank you.
All right, did you have a motion?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the county administrator to execute the Bank of America participant account form.
Second.
Properly seconded. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Ms. Cook.
Up again.
All right. Status of the Rivercombe Building elevator repair. Also, Ms. Cook.
All right, this is just going to be a brief update and then asking the board for next steps. The elevator overheated and malfunctioned in the county administration building September of 2025. Otis performed evaluation and submitted a modernization quote for $215,000. Elevator modernization would include upgrading key mechanical and electronic components of an existing elevator system. The Board of Supervisors deemed sourcing alternate solutions and pricing to be the best path forward. Procurement issued a request for proposal in November of 2025 to have a contractor to repair or replace components and deliver fully operational elevator that is pursuant to code. The RFP was extended due to lack of response during the initial posting. The county only received a single proposal that was deemed unresponsive due to an unsealed cost proposal. Staff moved to source a contractor by piggybacking off of a cooperative contract. Coney, ThyssenKrupp, Schindler, and Metro Elevators companies were contacted by multiple emails and calls in an attempt to schedule site visits. Metro Elevator responded and stated that a site visit would be priced at $335 an hour at a 2-hour minimum. No other responses have been received after multiple attempts at contact. So that kind of brings us back to our original quote that we received from Otis. I didn't call, but Mike Muncie did call and verify with them that the original quote is still good through April. So now I'm looking to the board for next steps. I do have a board report prepared if the board wanted to move forward with the quote that we received from Otis.
Any thoughts, comments, questions?
Comment. It bothers me every time I come in this building and the elevator's not working. It's this is our community building. It's our face to the community, and saying that, you know, certain community members might not be able to get to the second floor because they have a disability that prevents them from using the stairs is quite troublesome. Said, I guess with the 215, Mr. Smolnick, are we underrunning on any of our CIP budget items where this could come out of the CIP fund as opposed to a general fund?
So no, whenever this elevator first malfunctioned back in the fall, this was never part of our CIP. It went out in an instant. So, at that point in time, we tried the emergency repair, went through all the steps Ms. Cook outlined. So this is not part of our CIP. This was more, as we deemed it initially, an emergency repair. And that's, what we're suggesting to how to fund this and how to repair it.
I think it means, does anything we've already funded, is it underrunning? So that we can take some of that surplus and use it toward this.
Yeah, really, I was just, are we under on any of our projects with, I don't think we had a project in the community in the
money anywhere else.
center.
There's money in the fund balance for the capital. I don't know, specifically a dollar amount for each individual projects, but I'm looking at Ms. Cobb for confirmation that we do have some money in capital fund balance.
Retirement account.
We can take it out of our capital construction line as stated by Ms. Cobb.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize county administrator to direct staff to proceed with the original quote update as required by Otis, as submitted by Otis for the River Calm Administrative Building elevator modernization.
Second.
The motion is properly seconded. Any discussion on this? I have a question. What, if we do this, what's the timeline for getting it turned around and complete? And what kind of warranty are we getting with this?
Yeah, I have to go back to that original proposal to see the timeline.
I can answer, the warranty generally is 1 year parts and labor. That's usually what we, I think that's just kind of the norm. I believe lead time on this, the last time I spoke with Mike Muncy, was 30 to 60 days before the repair would begin.
But this doesn't include the actual repair cost, correct?
No, this is, I've got somewhere.
What was your question? Mr. Stroud, what was your question?
That it didn't actually include the repair cost. It was the on-site, them coming to evaluate it.
This would be the modernization of, there it is, sorry. This includes the engineering, materials, and installation.
So this is the bottom line. It's going to cost us $215,000. It'll be up and running. It's guaranteed for parts and labor for a year.
Yes.
Okay.
And I can get clarification on warranty details tomorrow.
I think he found it up here.
That's what I was looking for.
Mr. Smollett. So the motion was 215. I'm looking at the quote from Otis right now. It says $215,335. Is that within your?
So I would friendly motion to get that specific dollar amount as outlined in the Otis proposal, as stated by Mr. Metz.
So do you want to amend your motion?
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion for the amount of $215,335, vice the $215,000.
Second.
All right. Properly seconded. Any other discussion before we move on? I will note that these last two items are discussion items. Are kind of breaking protocol. I'm fine with that. Just acknowledging that we're kind of getting a little bit ahead of where we would normally be at this time. But I agree, this thing's been out of service for a long time, and we've got residents that can't get up to the offices that they need to. So, yeah.
So
okay.
We're discussing it. The option is, I don't think there's a requirement that we have an elevator, but we'd have to come up with a way if they wanted to meet with people, the county staff would have to go down and meet with them at another office. But right, but the county staff could come down and meet them
And it's
first floor.
I believe it's also for employees. Employees are going to need to access that second floor. If you have an employee who cannot access their office upstairs, then, what sort of accommodations are we going to have to make? So I believe it is the employees and the public.
All right. All right. Roll call vote. Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Mr. Metz?
Aye.
Mr. Bender?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. All right. Down to the county administrator report. Mr. Smolnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. A couple things for the board and for the citizens tonight. I know Ms. Puckett was not able to be here tonight. She sent me an email this afternoon reminding the Board of Equalization appointments. We first talked about this back on October 7th. for you to start thinking about who you would like to appoint, and then would need to be certified through the circuit court for Board of Equalization. Where the assessments are just about done here, we're going to get in a crunch time for budget here in the very near future. So, as we stated back in October, really encourage the board to talk to your constituents, figure out who you want to appoint to the Board of Equalization so we can keep the process and the budget moving forward. So I told Ms. Puckett I would make that announcement during my county administrator's report, so check that box. Second thing, the Bay Workforce Consortium. So this is a board where, Mr. Stroud and I are active participants. The fees for this are based on a per capita 25 cents per capita, with King George's fees for the current fiscal year we're in $7,142. Now, if you recall back in the spring of 25, outside agencies, I was directed to cut the funding, and then we brought that back to a board meeting where the board looked at individual outside agencies that are non-mandatory, and you selected which groups to fund. This particular board did not receive any funding. This has been a board that Mr. Stroud and I have been actively engaged. We actually have a board meeting tomorrow at noon to help individuals post and find jobs in this King George area. And it's a wide range all the way to the Eastern Shore that this group works with. Now, I do have authority to spend money out of a contingency to cover this, but, out of respect for the Board of Supervisors, you gave me direction not to fund it last year, so I will not do that. So a couple different items that we could look at. Should the board want to consider continuing this particular group, I've got, let me just pull up these specific motions here. Please bear with me, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure I get the wording correct. Here it is. So should the board want to, there are two different options. To pay the $7,142, you can either A, authorize the county administrator to transfer $7,142 from the general fund contingency to the Bay Consortium Workforce Development Outside Agency general ledger line, or B, appropriate $7,142 from the general fund balance to the Bay Consortium Workforce Development Outside Agency general ledger line. So the difference in those, they sound very similar. One is the contingency that I have built into my operating budget, for emergency events to cover for that fiscal year. The second option would be just take it from the general fund, unallocated funds to take care of this.
Mr. Chair.
Sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the county administrator to take the $7,142 from the general fund balance, unless, I really don't care which one it comes from, but I think that is worthy for our students and for the youth in the county. It's beneficial for us. So I don't really care which fund it comes from.
You want the contingency? We'll do it from the general fund contingency.
So I'd amend my motion to be from the contingent fund.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
All right, properly seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
Metz?
Aye.
Ms. Bender?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item, so septic pump out. I know we've had some discussions about this. The septic pump out monitoring program is done through the Community Development Department. This program ceased to monitor and track this back in 2024. Now, the current system that the Community Development Department uses, Munici, goes back to 2021, and there was a solid record-keeping tracking in place for those 3 years that we use Munici. However, 2024, the gap started, and we have not done anything since then. I'm here to let the board know that Ms. LeDuc and her staff have taken the bull by the horns here and ready to re-implement the septic pump out program. Again, this is for all private systems in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area. You have to have your private system pumped or inspected once every 5 years. So it can be inspected by an AOSE, authorized on-site soil evaluator, as outlined in state code. So these letters, right now, there are, the letters are, I believe, stuffed and ready to start going out. There are 4,000 in total to send out. This starts back with where where everything stopped in 2024. The individuals who were next on the list, those letters will go out first. I believe community development is looking to get out 100 to 200 a week until that 4,000 is met, so as to not have them all go out at the same time and then receive 4,000 letters all at one time. They will space this out. I think, is there anything else I'm missing, Ms. LeDuc? I think that about covers it. Again, this is standard practice amongst localities in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area. And this is part of our local code.
But no, I got you. I'm just wondering, so last year when I had mine, I didn't really have to. Y'all weren't paying attention?
Thank you for pumping your septic system out.
No, I got a letter.
So if you have it, so yes, whenever, I believe in those instances, if you've got your letter and whenever your time comes due to get that, you can submit your receipt to say it was pumped out in the last 5 years or inspected. So
You expect me to keep that receipt a year later?
You should pay your taxes.
We have some serious talking to do about your salary, sir. But anyway, do you have a question?
Yeah, so it's a shame Mr. Hamilton has left. I thought I recall, and maybe Ms. Binder knows, I thought I recalled a conversation where Stafford was no longer accepting septage. We were talking about making an upgrade at Dahlgren to accept septage, but that upgrade hadn't been made yet, is my understanding. And so if we send these letters out, what are the residents to do? The septic companies, I think somebody just got sent to court for illegally dumping.
I know, I saw that in
I know it's in the code, and hopefully there's a description in the letter this time about an inspection, because I can remember years ago when I got my letter, there was no discussion about the inspection part of it being an option. So
in big bold letters, septic system inspection or pump out compliance form. So that's big bold letters, what they were received and sent back to the county.
Yeah, I guess, do we have resolution that there is a place for the pump out companies to take septage for our residents?
So we do not have, I know Stafford's not accepting it, we're not equipped yet. This is to preserve the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area, and it's part of our code. This is just something, staff is looking to implement. Yes, it will probably, if somebody does need their septic tank pumped out, there's a reason it needs to be pumped out. It's full. Protect, we are located between two rivers here. We need to protect our rural lands and our ecosystems. Will it cost them more to transport it? It probably will, versus, if we had someplace here in the county. So that's a decision, this board needs to make. This is our code. It is a requirement. And this is just our notification going back out to staff to be responsible stewards of our county.
Yeah, there was a lot of anecdotal evidence last time, discussions about septic pump out companies saying, well, I don't know why I needed to do this. It was only half full or quarter full or whatever. So now they can do an inspection.
It's always been an inspection in the code.
Well, it was always an option. I don't think that was widely communicated to the public.
Right.
Maybe most people get out of this much cheaper than having to have it pumped. And if they need to have it pumped, you're right, need to have it hauled away somewhere. I guess maybe this is my other plug for let's get on those upgrades to Dahlgren.
Yeah, and I've reviewed this letter that's going to go out to the citizens. It's very clear. Paste and copy to a local code, and it's very clear that they can do either or. So I don't need any action from the board unless you direct me to halt, but we're going to move forward with this. Just wanted you to be aware, and more importantly for your constituents and the citizens to be aware that this will be coming down in their mailboxes. Next item, just yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if the state doesn't require it,
The state does require it.
It requires an inspection for sale.
State, this was part of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act done years ago by Delegate Murphy, and it requires that your septic system be pumped out every 5 years. I think either the health department will monitor this or it can be part of the local ordinance. It's part of King George County's local ordinance, but it is required by state law. They just, people didn't know, I don't know, they didn't tell them. It either has to be pumped or it has to be certified, I think it's by an engineer, that it's functioning properly. By a septic engineer, that it's functioning properly, either or. What happens is most of them just get pumped out,
Okay.
right or wrong.
Yeah, that's important because I've got people that have, said they've lived there their whole life, never had a problem. And now they have to have, the county's telling them to do this, and
It's not the county.
they think that we're just doing it for money or some other
This is a
purpose.
mandate from the state it probably was enacted 20 years ago.
I know there was a law that was passed last
40
year.
years ago. Yeah, it was so long. Time flies by when you're having fun, right? It's been in effect for a long time.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? I got two more quick topics. So the next one, just a reminder to the board and to the citizens, we will have a joint work session with the Planning Commission on Wednesday, February 11th. 5:30 start. The first hour is slated for a joint meeting with the Planning Commission to discuss the comprehensive plan. I know Ms. Leduc and I had, and Ms. Cook had a pre-bid meeting with consultants who are looking at that RFP for comprehensive plan services. So we had that. The first hour we're dedicating to that conversation with the Planning Commission at their request. Second part of that meeting, we'll be using Microsoft Whiteboard. This was, I know in our meeting, Ms. Fish brought us to this, and my staff has been hard at work on this last couple days. Please bring your laptops to this. If you're remote, you can participate in this. And essentially what we've got, I think it's 14 or 15 major projects. These are, the VOTEC, what do we do with the courthouse? Do we buy land for economic development? We've put a price tag on that, and it's an interactive, and the reason Whiteboard was selected, that people at home can watch this and watch the screen as you move your sticky notes around. Each board member is going to have a color-specific sticky note. It may say VOTEC building, $19 million. And you have, starting in 2026 out, maybe I think it's 10 or 12 years, you get to select what year you want to see that occur. So this exercise will provide staff the guidance from this board of what projects are most important to you. And I know Mr. Young, I met with him today. We will have a presentation. What we will do is the vast majority of these projects are already in the CIP. Now, you all haven't seen this year's CIP, but some of these projects you saw last year's CIP. So I'm having Mr. Young put those request forms from the CIP to accompany his staff report, so you have some background information on them. We'll go through those, a time for a question and answer, and then we'll go back, and then you will go ahead and prioritize your projects. Because some of these will require borrowing. And, for instance, if that VOTEC building is at the top of your list, we cannot cash fund that. We will have to borrow funds. And that's going to give my staff lead time to start working with Davenport to find the best financing options for us. So February 11th is going to be a critical meeting. I think it's going to be a good product. I thank Ms. Fish for her suggestions and her hard work on this. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, I know you gave me some direction a little at the start of the meeting to look at the height of the solar panels. I will work with community development on that. So as part of the FY27 budget, there are some new fees that will be proposed. Fees, they're not codified right now, but they really should be part of the code. We'll hold a public hearing to get those into the code. So Ms. Leduc has she's been working with her staff. A lot of her fees, these are fees for developers, home builders, nothing on the taxpayer. But if you want to, build a home, if you want to do this, you try to cover a majority of your costs through the fees through community development. There are some things that have not been touched for a number of years, and we've done a lot of research. Kelly and her staff has done a lot of research on other localities. So I wanted to let the board know that, Mr. Stallings, as we said, some of the next upcoming agendas, I'd like to have this, on the board for action in the near future, because that will impact our projected revenues for fiscal year 27, which I will need to do to build the budget. So I just want to put that on your table. It's coming in the near future. And I think that's all I have for my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any questions before we move on? Seeing none, good.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but the 11th, I will not be around.
You will not be available?
No.
You dial in at night?
So if you're not going to be around with this whiteboard, we can send it to you in advance, and we'll have all the information for you, and you can go ahead and select and move your post as to what, and that whenever we open it up, yours will already be in there as far as your priorities, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a bunch.
Have a motion, Mr. Chair.
Well, we got to do public comment. Well, I mean, you about to have a motion to adjourn? Okay, we're almost there. Trust me, I'm ready for myself. All right, secondary public comment to address meeting items only. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly recorded and included in the public record. Is there anybody that would like to make public comment at this time? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Ana Maria Lobo. I live in Presidential Lakes. I want to thank you for that you were involved in the storm. And also I want to thank you to the Sheriff's Department and the Fire and Rescue Squad. They do an amazing job when my children were little. Now they don't live in here, but they do an amazing job with the older people. If you need a call them, Mr. Moody worked long hours during this storm. All of them working long hours, and we need to appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Mr. Dodge, do you have anybody online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody get any correspondence? Mr. Stroud and I got one. This is from Ms. Ray Celeste Tanner from 8101 Washington Drive. She says, I saw the Paladin Solar Farm presentation for tonight's agenda, and I wanted to comment on how much I love this project. I especially appreciate, 1, the decommissioning bond ensuring the developer will restore the land to its prior condition. 2, the minimum traffic increase with at most 25 employees trips per day during the 3-month installation period, down to 1 to 2 per month when the panels are in operation. Number 3, the clear project timeline of 35 years. Technology inevitably becomes outdated, and this proposed project accounts for that. Number 4, the fact that this project presents no adverse effects to local residents and keeps our rural county rural. I realize this is a small project covering less than 25 acres, but I'd love to see King George with more of these kind of thoughtful, creative solutions that don't sacrifice residents' health and well-being and maintain the rural tradition that we love about King George. Sincerely, Ray Celeste Tanner. And that's it.
Mr. Chair, so I have another email. And so it's not that one. I thought that was the same, but it's not. This is this email. I'm not sure where the resident that says resident of King George, but it may not be one of my constituents. It's from Ray Basicic. It says, hello, Mr. Stroud. I'm writing you in regards to the proposed idea of building a data center off of Kings Highway near King George Dump. As someone who lives near there, so it would be my resident, I am highly against the idea. Many studies and reports within the past couple of years that communities who live near these centers have experienced increased respiratory issues and illnesses due to the pollution they emit. One of the gases emitted from these data centers is nitrogen dioxide, which can cause lung irritation and produce acid rain and smog. There's also farmland near this proposed location, and with that air pollution being emitted near them, the crops and the people working in the fields will be exposed to the emissions. In addition, the unsightly view of these facilities provide property values near them go down as well. Also, within the past couple of days, I've seen reports saying that OpenAI is projected to lose funding by 2027, which would render this construction a waste of money. These data centers are extremely power hungry too. It takes immense amount of energy to keep them running, which is overwhelming our power grids, which in turn causes electricity bills to go up for the civilians near them. With all that has been said, please don't build a data center off Kings Highway. Signed, Ray Basicic, resident of King George.
All right, thanks. Anyone else? No, I'll close public comment at this time. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We adjourn the Board of Supervisors to Wednesday, February 13th, 2026 at 5:30 in the boardroom of the Rivercombe Building located at
10459 Courthouse Drive, King George, Virginia, 22485.
Wednesday, February 11th.
What did I say? Wednesday, February 11th, 2026.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, folks.